everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Good Anime Palette Podcast. This is episode number 39. We are going over new seasonals. I'm wearing new glasses, which Will has failed to notice. And I'm your co-host, Jason. Will is over here. He's laughing his ass off.
It's one of those things where it's like you're being such a fucking tsundere. It's like, when is he gonna notice my new hair, huh? I made my hair in a new style. I cut it, I bleached it, and he hasn't said anything about it. Wow, you little tsundere queen. Well, good morning, everyone.
I'm not a queen, but yeah, sure. Tsundere, I'll take
whatever
it.
you want to be. Okay, nice glasses, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
I actually have another one.
Well, I mean, you wear that, I still won't fucking notice.
Yeah, I take off my glasses and there's another glasses.
I don't keep track of like these minute details, but now that you brought it up, yeah, I can see it now. Usually you have like the little wood frame ones. And,
yeah. That's now my backup.
Maybe I just didn't look deep into your eyes this morning.
But what we're going deep into is our seasonal premieres. And but first, what we have been reading, watching, some news. We cut back a lot of news, but there are some that are pretty interesting. Actually, one that is just hilarious.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to go over in terms of the seasonals because it just came in hot and heavy. Just loads and loads of releases and premieres, day to day, week to week. So we wanted to at least try and cover as much as we can, but at the same time have some caveats. There's going to be a lot of series that we're not going over, but we'll go over the reasons as to why we didn't cover them.
All right, so reading, watching, we are going to forgo most of it because this is seasonal time.
Technically, if this was like part of like the release schedule, this kind of counts as a seasonal in the sense that it literally like dropped in the beginning of October. Not October, in the beginning of July. So, if anybody has been keeping track with the news from Anime News Network, Crunchyroll, or whatever syndication you use to get your anime news, you might know of a very, very popular manga series that's getting an adaptation called Chainsaw Man.
What?
Yeah, CSM, one of the hotly most anticipated manga/anime series currently. I wouldn't even say all time. Like, it's just people just would not stop talking about it because part 1 of Chainsaw Man, as you and I have read, is amazing.
Hey,
it's fucking crazy.
And we will not stop talking about it
all
the way till it premieres, and then we will continue to not stop talking about it.
Now, we did go over some news before where there has been, not really delays, but there hasn't really been a lot of news as to when Chainsaw Man's coming out. Like, we know the studio, we know the kind of season it's supposed to drop, but it didn't have any, like, I think it was like one of the cons recently where they released a bunch of trailers and reveals for a certain series, but there wasn't any mention of Chainsaw Man.
Yeah, Anime Expo 2022, except Chainsaw Man was largely absent.
What isn't absent though is the continuation of the manga series. So rather than it being a sequel, it's just essentially the second part. Like I would say like the second long-awaited arc of the Chainsaw Man series.
So do you want to know a first world weeb problem that I had? Which is on my anime list, originally I had Chainsaw Man as a manga entry and listed as completed because I completed it. But then they didn't have a part 2 entry, so I literally had to take Chainsaw Man Part 1 completed out of retirement and into currently reading.
It feels shit when it's like you think you're done, but turns out that's no, that was just a false dawn. You actually had a lot more to read because since 2 weeks ago, Chainsaw Man Part 2 had released, and there are 2 brand spanking new chapters of the Chainsaw Man manga.
So chapter 98 and 99, and next week is 100, so it's going to be pretty crazy chapter, I presume.
This will be the longest running manga series that Fujimoto has done. I believe that with, for example, Fire Punch, it only ran for 8 volumes, so I think it got to around like the 80-ish mark in terms of chapters. And I liked Fire Punch, but I could see why it would not be able to sustain. I hope that it gets a little more popular, but at the same time, the subject material is pretty rough. I mean, speaking of rough, Chainsaw Man is also, oh god, the first chapter was just, if you hadn't already seen it from the first chapter of the part 1, part 2 just kicks things off high octane. You definitely do not miss a beat. And I think anybody who has been reading Chainsaw Man, oh, it's so easy to mix up, Chainsaw Man, and just really missed it, get on the manga, just read it whilst Mappa is still working on the anime adaptation.
So part 2 is known as the school arc. That's not a spoiler. That's been announced as the school arc. And now we have a better idea of what that meant. And without really going into the plot details of the panel by panel, I am very ecstatic that this was the direction that they went down. Because it's honestly not what I thought it would end up being.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought it was straight up just going to be like that kind of specific formula where you see the opening of a school and then like the characters you've come to know from the past are all already there, and then you're just basically watching more Chainsaw Man. But you're actually not doing it. It kind of is, but instead it kind of takes a step to the side and introduces a whole new world, but still interconnected with the original Chainsaw Man universe.
In fact, certain characters, or a lot of those characters, have yet to make an appearance, which is also quite refreshing, because you would think that the first... It's kind of like Overlord Season 2, where the beginning of Overlord Season 2 is not
really fucking weird.
Is really weird, but it then makes sense later on. So, hey.
And I think that, with almost a whole decade's worth of work from Fujimoto, I think he's kind of boiled down his science like to the point where he just knows how to execute the right formulas. And so far, despite the fact that it's only been 2 chapters, I think it's still like really, really damn good. I'm waiting for 100, and then however many more chapters and volumes there will be beyond what we're currently reading right now. But
yeah. And you can read it currently for free on Jump Plus, Manga Plus. I think they will do the thing where the first 3 chapters and the later 3 chapters will be available for free, and everything in between requires a subscription.
Yeah, so it's like I think each thing is like free for a limit of 3 weeks minus the first 3 weeks, first 3 chapters, and then everything, and then afterwards, like when a new chapter releases, the 4th most recent one then goes into the paid subscription. But that just means like, hey, look, you still have a pretty good time window to catch up. Or just buy the other manga. It's. I don't want to continuously shill for Chainsaw Man because everyone in this fucking world is doing it, but it's really goddamn good. It's so good.
And part 2 seems to continue that trend, which is good. All right, that is the end of our reading watching. Will?
Yep, we're gonna go into the news and just the news section really, because we got a lot of stuff to cover. So we'll go over some important news. 2 really, really interesting tidbits, actually. One which is like, wow, how the fuck did this happen?
So the first piece of news is the less interesting one, but is still equally important, is Crunchyroll. I've mentioned that name before numerous times. You should know what that is. It's pretty much the only premium anime streaming site right now. And funny enough, they have announced, I think last week, that they're reducing monthly prices in nearly 100 countries and territories. So you can go online to check whether or not the place that you live has this reduced fee. Hong Kong has, and it reduced it from $78 to $45 or something.
Yeah, it ended up being like well over like $3 worth of discount. In fact, like if we were to just even look at other locations, for example, in the UK, if you have a Crunchyroll Mega Fan subscription, it will go from £7.99 to £5.99. India, $9.99 to 99 Indian rupees. In Brazil, 32 Brazilian reals to 19.99. And then essentially, like along with that, and like 97 plus other countries in the world also got a pretty big discount.
So the reason why we felt the need to mention this is not only because Crunchyroll, if you consider anime streaming services, is basically Crunchyroll is the king or queen, if however you want to attribute the gender. But also the more important thing is rarely do we see people lower prices rather than increase prices. So in terms of the motivation behind this, it can go into a number of different directions. I think also because recently before this announcement, Crunchyroll announced that their basic plan, which is their free plan with ads, are basically restricted more so than what it was before. But, I mean, they're just making it more enticing to get the premium plan. They merged with Funimation, so now the catalog is even larger.
Exactly. Yeah, we can't really pinpoint like one specific reason as to why there is this price discount. I mean, like you said, right? That acquisition and merger with Funimation could be a factor. It could also be the fact that there's speculation that Netflix is looking to slash their own subscription fees after their little partnership with Microsoft. But look, like whatever the reason may be, like I'm happy to be saving a couple dollars every month so I can continuously watch anime. Like I don't see this as a bad thing at all. Like if anyone sees this as a bad thing, like why? Like, do you want to pay more money for a subscription? No.
So our second and last piece of news is Baka of the Month, except this time I think I was the Baka of the Month, kind of. On Netflix, they recently released the live-action version of Resident Evil.
Now, there always was a live action. We specifically mean the TV series,
That's
as opposed
correct.
to the movie series.
Was it Mila
Jovovich?
Yeah.
Mila Jovovich.
Yeah.
Something.
So she plays Alice or something? I don't remember. Anyways, this live-action Resident Evil, based on the very, very well-known horror Japanese action series, has tons of remakes, massively popular. So why are we mentioning it on an anime podcast? Because there is a scene. Will, do you actually?
It was like 10 seconds. It was a 10-second scene in which two girls are talking, and
let's not mention their names because one of their names is spoilery. But
you take the first name, I take the second name, and then we'll just run through the conversation.
Okay, so it takes place in episode 2. So
within the Umbrella facility. That's not a spoiler. It's the game's been around for almost 30 years. But anyways,
so I'll start.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Simon's got the new Deca-Dence. It's the super hard to get anime.
Not that hard. It's on NYAA.
Not here. Umbrella blocks torrent sites. Simon's like the only one that can get around the firewall. So within like 5 seconds, we got Deca-Dence, which I think came out 2 years ago.
Something like that, yeah.
And then we got NYAA, which is
a site, it's a
site
that is very well known
to procure certain things in certain means. We don't want to go into that because we don't really want to, of course, embellish anything of that nature.
And for those people who don't know what NYAA is, it's basically the cat sound, the meow, but weeb version.
Onomatopoeia, but Japanese. So within like 5 seconds, I mean, I wasn't even looking at Resident Evil. I have no interest in any live action or any like rendition of Resident Evil. I kind of like the games. The games are cool, but they got kind of boring after a while. I know that they have like the revamp with like
it's
7 and 8. It's good, but I was more a Silent Hill fan, so I'm like really upset that whilst Capcom is still pushing out more and more Silent Hill Resident Evil games, Silent Hill has been like in hell.
Isn't Silent Hill Konami?
Yeah. But Konami don't do shit because Konami's a terrible company.
Well, they're also pretty much non-existent.
I mean, you saw what they did with Hideo Kojima.
It's funny you say that.
Yeah.
But let's not get into that. There is news about him, but we cut the news because.
So yeah, more and more every day, anime is permeating into the mainstream as if it hasn't already been doing that.
Also, of all the anime to name drop, you decide to use Deca-Dence. First of all, I approve of that choice.
But second, as well, it's like when I said it to you, you're just like, "Wait, Will, like, are you sure you heard it? Are you sure they didn't say decadence? Like they're talking about like a chocolate?
Oh yeah, this is so decadent, dude. Right?
No, they literally like. I even had to. I couldn't like screen cap it on my laptop, so I had to get my phone out and actually record it and then send it to Jason. And he's like, "Did they say nya?" I'm like, "Oh shit, they did say nya."
And then literally 24 hours later, everyone's reporting on it. But I have to say, Will, we were there in the front lines. We got the news first.
It's weird. It's like this really shouldn't be newsworthy, but at the same time, it's like it's just one of those little pockets of like anime hitting the mainstream that you're just looking at. It's like, yeah, anime is cool now. Anime is super cool, but at the same time, it's also just like, well, do they actually watch anything else besides Deca-Dence?
So here's the thing. Why Deca-Dence? Is like Ajin would have been a better choice, so to speak. Tokyo Ghoul, Parasite. No, actually, not Parasite. Not Tokyo Ghoul.
Parasite. Well, it's too close to the source.
No, because Ajin was licensed by Netflix. That's what I'm saying with Polygon Pictures. So I was like, why don't you rep your own show? And you decided to use Deca-Dence instead. But okay, look, I like Deca-Dence.
Why are you gonna all of a sudden say, "Oh, why didn't you say Records of Ragnarok?" Because it's shit. the anime adaptation is trash.
That and you know what? If they had name drop records
Vermeil,
of Ragnarok,
Rome, Nove,
and then all of a sudden the second girl is like, "Yo, that is bullshit," I would have been like, "Okay, Netflix, you have my
Can you
attention."
imagine there's a kid like with his face in his hands like shivering, and then like another girl comes up and says like, "Oh, what's going on? What happened?" It's like, "Oh, don't talk to him. He just finished watching Kotaro Lives Alone."
Oh Jesus! That's wow.
He just watched the live action rendition of Death Note.
Oh, he got his hands on it. The Duffer Brothers showed him an extra 5 minutes of footage that no one else has seen.
Man. Like I don't need to see Death Stranger Note things.
But what you want to hear and see is our perspective on the summer seasonals, which we'll go into right now.
Yep. So we're going to put an end to the news. There was a lot of stuff, as just mentioned, that we wanted to cover, but it's a very, very heavy summer season. Summer's here, school's out, so now it's time for anime. And thankfully, prior to the season happening, we were kind of thinking, this kind of looks like a very mid kind of season. But as we started watching stuff, there's actually some bonkers anime. There's some bangers in there. So we're going to try and cover as much as we can. But before we go into the actual summer seasonals, there's a couple of things that we've been doing behind the scenes.
So the first thing is a bit of a disclaimer, which we do in front of every seasonal premiere episode, which is we don't watch every single show. We watch more shows than we cover. We just decided that, hey, it's not worth talking about. And it doesn't mean that we'll continue watching all these shows. I mean, maybe when we have time, we'll go over what shows we have kept and our feelings on them. But then, after the disclaimers are gone, let's go back in time to spring 2022. Will and I have seasonal bets that we have with each other where we try to predict before any seasonal premiere happens how many of those shows would be an 8.0 or above on my anime list. So Will, at the time for spring, said, what did you say? You said 6?
Yes, I said 6. You said 8. So there was that middle ground of 7 being the deadlock. Neither of us but one. We just move on to the next season, but we will essentially give a little punishment. It's like Batsu to each other.
I think I said 7 actually. Because
you said 8.
Really?
We definitely had a little sort of we never intentionally go for a tie, as in we always have a number in between ours. And I think it's just how happened that you said 8, I said 6, and that's why I was always content for it to be 7. I'm not sure. You can call me out if I say anything wrong.
But what happened, Will?
Essentially, we got to a point where there were 6 shows that were on 8.00 and up. And there were 2 shows in particular that were in the ascendancy. One of which was Ayawashi, and I really, really like Ayawashi. And as much as I was rooting for it to get to an 8, I also realized that if it does get to that 8.00 benchmark, it would essentially knock me out of the running for the seasonal bets. So, asshole Jason decided to timestamp all the WhatsApp messages I sent to him. In that there was a period when Bookworm was slowly dropping in the ratings, but still holding on to an 8.
No, it dropped, and then it jumped back up to an 8.11 after the finale.
Yeah, so I just said, look, even if Bookworm drops, there's a good chance that Awashi can take over. And because I'm a huge soccer head, and because I really, really like Awashi, even if I have to take the defeat, take the L, I would at least take it graciously because it's still Ayawashi.
And Will's prediction was correct because Ayawashi is now above an 8. And I said it was 7 or more. You said 6 or fewer.
There you go. So then, even with 8, 9, 10, it didn't matter. My fate was sealed as soon as Ayawashi took the 7th spot.
So that means I won the seasonal bet. Yay. Okay, now let's go on to the summer seasonal bets, which Will and I determined before any seasonal premieres, but we just didn't announce it until right now.
Yeah, so we went into our predictions. I predicted there would be 4 shows or less that would be 8 and up, and then Jason predicted 6 or more shows that would be 8 and up. So I have to say, I'm not doing so hot right now.
Right, and if there
because I'll tell you exactly why I fucked up on this one. I completely forgot that Love Live Season 2 was playing this season.
Yeah. So there's currently 6 shows that are 8.0 or above. Made in Abyss Season 2, Overlord Season 4, Classroom of the Elite Season 2, Call of the Night, Lycoris Recoil, and Love Live Superstar, the second season, with Uncle Isekai.
Like I think it's a 7.97, right?
Yeah,
so
that's correct.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna breach an 8 because we'll go over more later on, but it's a damn good show. Spoiler alert. But yeah, even if I had taken out like the fact that I forgot about Love Live and I actually like included it as part of my calculation, I would still be at a 5, which means I would still be losing this bet.
Yeah, I actually wanted to go to 7 or 8, but then I cut it down to 6 because I did not know whether certain shows would reach the 8.0 benchmark. But the one that we both thought would be a sure winner ended up being a sure loser, and we'll get into that really.
Yeah. So we're going to go quickly into just, I guess, sort of like a current and retrospective breakdown in terms of the stats, just so at least people can sort of see the trends of season per season, at least for 2022. So in the current season, 2022 summer, this is as current as possible. I think the stats were taken in either yesterday or the day
I
before.
did it today. Sorry. Okay. I forgot to update the date.
So I think at the moment, as updated and as current as possible, we currently have a pretty decent spread of 6 shows that are in the 8 and 8.99 bracket, and then between 6.00 to 7.99. I would say that's like mid territory. Though of course there's going to be some that are trying to be pushing themselves up to a higher grade. It's an even split of 16 and 16 between 6.00 and 6.99 through to 7.00 to 7.99.
So a total of 32 entries. So that's where the majority of scores lie.
It usually is. I mean, like even if you look back to like the previous season or the season before that, it's still very much mid heavy. Then there are like 2 specific outliers. One which I think is the other. Oh, shoot! To the Future. The other soccer show that is airing right now. I think that one's the one is a 5.
And then there's a 5.13, yeah. And the
what's
other
the 4?
Mushashino?
Oh, I think that's a sequel to another Mushashino series.
With a 4.76.
So we do have some stinkers. Very, very blatant why like we decided not to even mention them because we're not watching them. Now there is of course a caveat. There are certain series in here that are also included to the calculation, specifically an ONA. Is that an ONA or is it like actually like a serialized TV show?
All I know is that it's on Crunchyroll, so I'm not sure if there's a time slot for it.
Right. Well, we'll mention that later on. In the previous season, which we covered in episode 33, this is spring 2022. We got we actually got a lot of really, really good shit. We had 7, 8 to 8.99, and we had 1 that was a 9 to 9.99. Anyone want to guess what that show is? It's currently the highest ranked show on MAL, Kaguya-sama Season 3. Previously, there was also...
Is number 1?
It's still number 1. It overtook Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Because there was that thing where people just started slandering like Brotherhood and bringing the score down, and then the FMA fans started coming in and bringing down the score for Kaguya. But I think at the moment it's still got a 0.03 lead over it.
So do you want to know another first world week problem? Is if you go to myanimelist.net right now and look at spring lineup, the first thing you see if you arrange by score or anything really is actually a couple of cuckoos because they pinned it. And I'm assuming it's because they paid money.
You watched Couple Cuckoos?
Yeah, I did. It's all right.
But it's not like the top show of the season or like ever, right?
100% not the top show of the season.
Yeah. So they were pretty good, right? 8 total of shows that are 800 and up. And then it was incredibly mid-heavy. Like almost 42% of spring 2022 was a 7 to 7.99. 32% of it was a 6 to 6.99. And crazy enough, there were actually 5 shows that were in the don't even bother watching section, at least to us. That was a total of 50 shows. There were some things that were included. For example, like some ONAs like Tiger and Bunny Season 2, Ultraman Season 2, as well as a movie, Bubble. But there wasn't a specific show called Thermae Rome Nove because we didn't discuss it during the episode. I think it came out after the premiere.
Yes, that's correct. So, and then Winter has similar kind of distributions for summer where everything was bunched to the 6s and 7s, which makes a lot of sense, except There was one dude called Rusted Armor that decided to be like, yo, bro,
crash the party.
How low can we go? Apparently down to the 3-point something something category.
Y'all thought that Tesla Note was shit? Hey, hold my beer. That's basically what happened. So, yeah, I think like so far it's not like the current season is transcending everything else, right? It's still very much a lot of shows that are in the mid-range and then a handful of stuff that is doing really, really well.
Right. So our hesitation in the beginning, like way back in looking forward to summer and being like, and it turns out that actually it's pretty standard season and there are highlights as well as lowlights. So speaking of those, we will now go over very quickly the shows that we will not cover as part of this seasonal premiere. Starting with Rent-A-Girlfriend Season 2. Why aren't we covering it, Will?
Because it sucks.
Good. Okay, Danmachi Season 4. Why aren't we covering it, Will?
Because I haven't watched any of it and it sucks.
I watched Season 1 and
part
of
also,
Season 2.
like, the release schedule is kind of weird. Because I was actually, like, checking with Jason. Unfortunately, we tried to confirm it. I don't think either of us have a High Dive account. We watch a lot of our stuff on everything else, though.
I don't have a High Dive account anymore, yeah.
So, like, on the High Dive website, it said that it was airing on July 21st. But then other platforms such as like My Anime List, I think even AniChart said it as well, where it wasn't releasing until July 23rd. So who knows if it's out yet? Maybe they were just saying it because episode 0, the prequel episode for it, had come out. But yeah, we didn't bother watching it because I haven't watched a single episode. No. I think you watched. How much of season 1 did you watch?
Oh no, wait, I do have a High Dive account because I watched Ayumu.
Oh right, yeah. Then hey, share your account, man.
Okay.
I just been watching it with you. Anyways,
why aren't we covering Made in Abyss Season 2, Will?
If you haven't already heard from us, despite our love for Kevin Penkin, I don't think his music is enough for us to continue watching Made in Abyss.
Kevin,
sorry,
we love you, but really, we don't. Will and I don't really care that much.
But I don't think he has any output in terms of like how the story goes. Like, he just makes the music, right? So he gets a pass. But
Made in Abyss Season 2 is currently the highest rated My Anime List summer seasonal.
It's a very high 8.
8.77.
It's I mean, obviously, like, it's insanely popular, but for one reason or another, neither Jason or I could get into it. And so therefore, if we didn't finish season 1, then what's the point of watching season 2?
Kagegurui Twin.
It's not coming out until the week after this recording releases, so
we definitely will cover it though, 100%.
There's going to be an episode where, like, where we're doing our read watch list. If it's been out and it's been covered, then we will go over it.
KJ Files.
This was an interesting one. Of all the shows that are on the summer seasonal lineup, this is one show that is actually not simulcasting outside of Japan. Now, I can get it. It's not a super like well-known property. KJ stands for Kaiju, so Kaiju Files, and I was actually super interested in it because I do like myself some Kaiju, but it was more just sort of like a little like curiosity.
Surprise, surprise! The guy who likes Ultraman also likes Kaiju.
Who would have thunk, right?
Yeah, who would have thunk, right?
So unfortunately, because it's not like broadcasting outside of Japan, can't watch it.
What about The Maid I Hired Recently is Mysterious?
So this one, I actually, like, you and I both really wanted to watch this. Not like, I mean, of course, there's specific reasons as to why people want to watch it.
Very cultured reasons, let's just say, yeah.
Yes, but unfortunately, this will be released after the recording. So by the time you listen to this recording, it should already have aired its first episode. But because, we can't travel through time and all that, even if we did, we can only go through the past. We can't really jump to the future. So we can't cover it.
Fudo PI.
Another thing as well, it doesn't release until after the recording, August 1st specifically. So we're not covering it now, but again, it's another one that I would also be wanting to watch as well.
All right, so then right now we will go over the stuff that we will have actually watched, and we will split it into sequels and dumpster fires, and then we will take a break, and then we'll go over the recommended, the maybes and the recommended, basically in that order.
Yeah. So there were actually quite a few seasonals that we did watch. One which has been long awaited for most. I mean, for me, I was kind of okay not having a second season. But Devil is a Part-Timer Season 2 finally came out. And boy, it is more or less the same shit. So just to give like a quick rundown in terms of what it is. If you haven't, because it's been almost like a decade since the last, at least like 5 years.
No, almost a decade. 2013.
Really? Jesus.
Spring.
Okay. So it's based on a light novel series of the same name by Satoshi Wakahara, who does the story, and then 029, who does the art. Now, both the light novel and manga adaptation are done in English by Yen Press. Season 1, as Jason mentioned, released in 2013, specifically the spring season. Now, at the time, it was done by Studio White Fox, which I quite like. But this time round, for the second season, it's being produced by Hertz.
Studio 3 Hertz, yeah. And the art style has also changed from, I guess, the more typical anime look to, I think, more akin to the manga adaptation, to look a little bit more, I guess, cutesy in a way. But, Will, what do you think of Devil's a Part-Timer Season 2?
So, Season 2 is kind of playing out in a similar way as to another seasonal that's playing right now. I think you know which one I'm talking about. But it's, more or less the same thing, just the different coat of painting. It's good. I think it's still something that, like, I mildly enjoy. I remember watching the first season and being like, this is pretty damn good. I don't think it was, like, earth-shatteringly good, but I was at least committed to watching the whole season.
I mean, when you asked Jason from 2014, I gave it a 6.
I can see why. I mean, it's not necessarily the best show, but I think it's because it covers enough specific isekai and reverse isekai tropes and character tropes that if you like those things, you'll very much enjoy it. If you thought they're overplayed, then you will probably be a little bit more critical of it.
I do like the new art style, or at least the transition from the first season to second season, maybe because of time. I thought the second season, the look and overall general feel is pretty much what I remember of season 1. The same characters, same voice actors and actresses, and everything seems to be the way it was, as Will said, except with a different coat of paint and like a decade in the future.
Yep. So on to the next one, Overlord. The fourth season has also dropped. I think it's currently on episode 3. It was a 3 or 4.
No, it's 3 because I didn't watch it yet.
Okay. Well, I have.
I watched the first 2 episodes though.
It's very much the same thing, which is not a bad thing actually. Just a quick recap as well. It's a light novel series, based on the same name, written by Kogane Maruyama, and the art was done by Sobin. The English for the light novel and the manga are done also by Yen Press.
I read the manga; it's really good.
Yep. So in terms of the anime itself, look, we've had 3 seasons. But I think the wait between season 3 and season 4 was the longest one.
Right. So there is season 1, 2, and 3. I think there is Isekai Quartet, and then there's the one called
there's 2
something.
seasons of Isekai Quartet along with a movie, and then there's also like another like chibi version of Overlord.
Pi something.
And then, of course, there's movies that go along with it, too. But they're mostly sort of like compilation / like retrospective movies, which are not necessary to watch. But, hey, look, if you want to, speed run your anime, I guess you can watch those.
I mean, I just put one line in our docket, SSDD, but in a good way, which is same shit, different day. But in a good way, it just continues the story. You see all your favorite characters return, and it's just good. That's really it. Nothing much to say, but nothing bad to say either.
If it's good, more of the same is good. I don't think that like you would be bored watching it. You would be as entertained as you were watching the first 3 seasons.
Absolutely. And it was just good.
Now, on to the next show, which I didn't watch in completion. I think I watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes of this series when it aired a couple seasons ago. We're talking about Shadow's House season 2. Now, I didn't watch it, but Jason went on a speed run and decided to crush the first season, wouldn't stop talking about it, watched the second season, and is now gonna not stop talking about it.
So Shadow's House is based on the manga of the same name by Somato, I guess, who did the story and the art, published in English by Yen Press yet again. Season 1 premiered in spring 2021. Both seasons are produced by Cloverworks.
Very good studio.
And originally, one of the reasons why Will and I kind of dropped the show, because we both did for a long time, was that, there are elements of Tim Burton-esque kind of aesthetics and tone and mood, but it kind of is not going anywhere.
I think it's just down to the pacing. And this is also just coming from the fact that neither of us... Well, have you read the manga?
No.
So neither of us had any idea what the show was about.
I think the first volume in English is releasing not even... like right around now.
So yeah, we would have no prior indication of what the show would be, and so when watching there definitely was a mystery, supernatural element to it, but it felt kind of hard to judge it because we watched a lot of other supernatural mystery before, and the pacing was done really, really. I mean, dude, fucking Shinsekai Yori was like one of the greatest supernatural mysteries,
but one of the slowest.
But we were okay with it. I don't know why. Like I wasn't like I was down with the pacing for this one because the pacing is pretty much the same in that it's very, very slow with like a 1% reveal of what's actually happening, and you slowly get that like closer and closer to that completion rate. I think even by the time you finish season 1, it's like you've come so far, yet you're still like not even close to actually revealing anything yet.
I really think one of the reasons is not only because they have to set the foundation, but because the breadcrumbs that they give you is so small that I think a lot of people were turned off by it. But I decided to, in anticipation of the summer release, decide to binge all of season 1, at least try my best to, and it picks up way, way fast and really crazy. And then season 2 continues that story, and it's just really good. I'm not a super big fan of Tim Burton type aesthetics and shows, but look, I like Nightmare Before Christmas and all that. Like, it's
Did
good.
you like Corpse Bride?
I do like Corpse Bride.
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was good. But this is basically of that tone, of that style, and I mean the shadow people are literally all black. They reveal a huge thing that is kind of like, oh, okay, good. That's cool. And then literally it is, okay, good, you're at the ground floor, now work your way up, that kind of thing. So that's it, really.
The scores are doing quite well for it, too. In the first season, in terms of its Mal raw score, it achieved a 7.75 as of dates. In the second season, currently right now, with a couple of episodes in, it's 7.89, so slowly scaling the charts. Do you feel, though, that like with the way that it's going, considering its pacing, that it could potentially hit an 8? Or do you think it's like, if there is a season 3, then that season will be an 8?
Look, I think there's another show that Will won't stop talking about recently called Summertime Render, which we forgot to mention, but Will's continuing to watch it.
That was more because it was a continuation. It's a two-cur from Spring, so it's kind of hard to fit it in. I mean, there's other stuff I'm watching right now from Spring.
But I think Shadow's House does something similar, but just from my gut feeling, way lesser than Summertime Render, which is they give you enough to string you along, and then once the big reveal shows up, you're like, all right, I'm in. But like, you got to give me something every time. And now they are really giving you a decent amount of new questions and answering old questions, and some that you're just like, maybe? I don't know. So it's good. It's really hard to go into the plot because it's really weird.
Yeah. On to the final sequel that one of us has been watching.
So I watched Shadow's House. Will didn't. And now this time, it's the inverse. Will, what you got?
So I've been watching Classroom of the Elite. So I, like you, binged the first season of Classroom of the Elite and then started watching the second season as it's been airing this season. It is based on a light novel series, same name, written by Shinsaku Tomase, who does the art. Shogo Kinogasa does the story, and Shinsaku does the art.
Oops, I forgot to reverse it.
It's okay. It's fine. You're just trying to catch me out, right?
No.
So both the light novel and the manga adaptation, this time published in English by Seven Seas Entertainment. Now, season 1 premiered back in 2017, and I remember watching the first season. I watched like halfway through, and it
wasn't a Netflix exclusive.
No,
right?
but it did drop on Netflix, and that's why I watched it.
Yeah,
and it was okay. I think the pacing was kind of weird. It didn't really like offer much more than just this being a sort of like classroom setting for a mind game anime, like very much akin to like Kakegurui, Liar Game.
That's why I didn't watch Classroom of the Elite, because I was just like, even the uniforms look exactly the same, and I like Kakegurui, and so what?
And it's not nearly as high stakes. I mean, yeah, of course there is like social standing, and that's where it was like, that's when I realized, oh, so that's what the show's about. It's not even about like winning or money or whatnot. It's being able to maintain your social standing amongst your classmates.
And its score standing is doing really well, because Will and I didn't know this until we, Googled it on my anime list. But
the light novel for Classroom of the Elite, Part 1, is the second highest rated light novel of all time, only behind the Monogatari series. I think it was first or second season that was rated number 1 overall.
For Monogatari?
Yeah.
Yeah, first.
The first season, yeah. So that's a pretty good company to be in. Guess
8.91, man.
Guess what else is at 8.91? Monogatari second season.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think final season is not that far off either. But anyways, it is very, very highly acclaimed within the light novel world.
But ranked 17 of all manga, doujin,
just
light
literature,
novel,
essentially.
And popularity 192, so it's like nothing to scoff at.
It's only when you start comparing it to the manga and the anime, however, that like it's how the hell did something that is basically a 9 in the literature world get down to like a mid 7 to a low 8, which, by the way, is still very, very good. And the reason why is when anyone tries to, it's not always that somebody tries to recreate a light novel and does it the Nishio way, where they actually make the literature the whole script for the series. I think Classroom Delete falls victim of trying to condense a lot of stuff, specifically character developments, plot twists, major events, and try and condense it so that it is as fascinating or as fast-paced as possible. And that's where like the pacing kind of suffers, because a lot of the stuff, especially the introspective thinking of a lot of the main characters, which is very easy to read, and is the main points of the light novel, it's not there in the anime. But it still has like gripping moments. A lot of like sort of like pseudo smart kind of strategies. Like whenever you see like a strategy,
like chess move, like I'm 3 steps ahead of you. When you think you're 3 steps ahead, I'm 3 steps more.
A lot of like crazy like social deduction or being.
Are they eating potato chips though?
Cold reading, that kind of stuff. Yeah, basically, having potato chips on your desk, that kind of thing. It's just like, it's just like 420. 360 no scope, GG kind of like
5 head type thing, right? But Studio Lurch is producing both the second season and also the first season, and they pulled Rising of the Shield Hero and committed to adapting all of what they call the first year arc, which I'm assuming is the first year of high school.
So what they are doing though is unlike Shield Hero, Season 2 is doing really, really well. And so I think that like Season 3 is going to continue that momentum. I think, look, if you haven't watched Classroom Delete yet, it is worth the watch. It does get better. It's one of those, like, let it slowly brew, and then you'll enjoy the fruits of your labor.
So as someone who never even considered watching Season 1 because I heard lots of okay things only, it is the light at the end of the tunnel of Season 2 is a good one, basically. With a score of 8.12, that's highly, highly respectable.
Yeah. So we've talked about some. I mean, the sequels are bound to be pretty decent, unless you're Shield Hero, unfortunately, or One Punch Man. But we're now going to go a little bit 180 and go in the opposite direction. We're going to be talking about the do not watch list, the dumpster fires of the summer season 2022.
So we don't like that much to rail on animators and staff members who really pour their heart and soul into producing these works. But as anime and manga critics, because guess what, Will, we are them now.
Look, I think it's just being, not even just being a critic, like just being a normal person. It's like, if there's something you don't like eating, you don't eat it.
Like, we're being objective of the product, but we're not being vindictive or evil towards the people behind it.
The specific series we're talking about are not representative of the production studio, of the staff, of the people that are advocating for these series. Look, there's going to be a space for these series for someone. It's just unfortunately not for Jason or I. Maybe like in some different levels. I think there's some stuff that like I like a bit more than Jason and vice versa. But nonetheless, like if they're in this section, I think universally, between you and me, we're in agreement that these are not recommends.
Yes. So let's start with probably the most surprising one to be in this category. It has a raw score of 8.40, rank 190, and popularity 261 for the manga source.
I was gonna say, whoa, that's a fucking good score for the anime.
Fucking good score for the manga, Will.
But then I was like, if that's the anime score, why aren't you recommend it? And then it turns out, no, that was just the manga score.
It is published in English by Seven Seas Entertainment, though, and it is based on the manga of the same name by Satoshi Mizukami.
We're talking about Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer. Now, when I first heard about this from Jason, because I literally had no fucking clue what this was. I mean, it makes sense in the fact that like the manga member-wise, it only has like 50,000 people, which actually is a lot of people, but I literally never heard of this. And as I saw the score, it's like, oh, wow, this actually is a very, very, I guess, highly anticipated show.
It's a very old show, a very old manga as well. And this is the same mangaka who did Spirit Circle, which is another, I guess, similar echelon of manga in the same tier as Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer. And Studio Naz decided to make a season of Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer airing now. And
it's terrible. Naz, I like as a studio.
I like Naz.
They do some good stuff, but for some reason,
Invaded, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But for some reason, it felt like they forgot how to animate for this adaptation. Because Jesus Christ, the character designs and the animation quality felt very 90s.
Yeah, it's not just that, but there was an action scene where the female main character shows up, and it is just looks like the most South Park animation quality I've seen.
The knee slide.
Yes, and then someone gets knocked back, and then when they get knocked back on the ground, they slide, right?
It's clip art animation. It's a PowerPoint presentation.
The 3D, the main character has like this thing that he can use that looks like an embryo or an egg, essentially, or a white blood cell, and it just looks horrendous.
I don't think there is any need to go into the plot. It's just don't watch it. If you're curious enough to see what it is, then you can figure it out yourself. But like just from initial inspection, we've only watched the first episode, and I very much doubt that the second episode's going to be any better because currently the raw score for the anime is a low 6.10.
That is
rough. It's rough.
Like from an 8.4 to a 6.1 is such a huge gulf that there must be something that happened that we don't know about.
Was Rose King's drop as bad as this?
Pretty bad. It was above an 8, and then now it has a 5.3 something.
So it's similar
even worse.
Thing,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, similar. So it is really unfortunate that the adaptation process didn't go very well, and it just goes to show that something that Will and I have gone on about, which is just because the source is good doesn't always guarantee, even if you follow it panel by panel, plot by plot, that it would automatically translate into a good anime.
It goes the same way as well, where it's like just because the manga has a really low score doesn't mean that the anime can't be good. I mean, for example, like Ranking of Kings, the manga wasn't very well known, wasn't very high score, but when the anime came out, holy crap, it was fucking amazing, and that helped push the manga score up. That's like a good instance of an anime helping something out. Whereas this one, like, you have this old ass manga that was very, very popular and doing very, very well, and all of a sudden you have this adaptation which kind of just like wastes all the hard work.
We have a mutual friend who was like, "Oh, I read this back in the day. This is like the best manga I've read. This is gonna be great." And we were both like, "Oh, okay, cool, optimistic." And then I don't even want to mention the anime adaptation to this person because I'm sure this person feels
shatter their dreams.
It does.
It's pretty much the reason why like I refuse to watch the adaptations of Tokyo Ghoul or Demon Wonderland.
Now let's get into a bit of D-Gen, Will.
Well, okay, like it comes with a caveat because how D-Gen is it really? Well, let's find out. We're going to be talking about My Mom's Daughter is My Ex.
No, My Stepmom's Daughter is My Ex.
Do you want to say the Japanese name?
Mama haha no tsurego ga motoka no da.
Not bad. Okay. So it was a light novel series based on the same name by Takayaki. The second K is capitalized for some reason. That's the person who did the art. And then Kyosuke Kamishiro does the story. Published in English digitally as My Stepmom's Daughter is My Ex by J Novel Club as of February 14th.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah. What better time than to, have sex with your stepsister?
It is produced by Project Number 9, and the plot is exactly what it sounds, which is two people who used to be exes found out then the male main character's father and the female main character's mother decided to get married, and they have to keep their...
Well, you're talking about Domestic Girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Domekano is that's the plot for the story.
Yeah. It's exactly the same, right?
Except one is actually good. I mean,
what
bias here?
I mean, yeah, Stepmom's Daughter's My Ex is pretty good, right?
So it's okay. it's pretty good if you haven't seen Domekano. If you haven't seen any of the stuff from Project 9, Because Project 9 also did Higehiro, and that was another one of those little like questionable story plots. Not in the sense that it's like, incest focest, but it was like age gap.
I don't think age gap is necessarily a bad thing either in terms of a theme.
Hey. That's be a little cautious here, because we will be talking about some age gap stuff in the future. Just that we are fully aware that there are some concerns as to the plot itself. Now, specifically going back to My Stepmom's Daughter Is My Ex, I just don't think it is that fun. You can definitely see that they're trying to push for that comedy angle and also that racy, etchy angle, but it
also have a wholesomeness to it.
It's so soft core that like it's not even etchy anymore. Like, it's just basically two dunces are getting each other's way, and then they have an etchy accident, and then oh shit, well we can't do this because you're my brother. Oh, but we're not related by blood, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and let's make a bet where the first person who loses has to call the other Oni-chan and One-san, because guess what? They have the same birthday. Great.
Yeah, what kind of Wish.com Kaguya-sama is this? In the end, it's just mind games that like don't really play out to be all that smart, and I can't recommend it to anybody.
Currently, it has a 7.21 on my anime list, which is a fine score, okay score. But the issue that I have is similar with another show later on. It tries to be in the middle ground of pleasing everybody, but because they do that, they please nobody. That's it.
Now, going into a show that tries really, really hard, so hard, in fact, that in order to please everybody, they actually released 3 different versions of it. We're talking about a harem in a fantasy world, Labyrinth, which is based on a light novel of the same name by Doji Shiki and Shachi Sogano. The manga is published in English by Mien.
I've never heard of them before, but...
Well, I mean, like, it's a harem. It's definitely got some etchy shit.
Hey.
So what better studio to get than Passione?
Because, Passione did Maruko-chan, which I quite liked, so it's not going to be bad,
It's
right?
also done some very, very questionable stuff, too. But
let's, hey.
Let's not go into that.
What is Harem in a Fantasy World Labyrinth about? Well, it is very simple. It is about a guy who gets isekai'd and has a bunch of really risque moments with certain female slaves.
Basically, it's a harem builder. This guy is literally collecting women as he goes along. And
like, literally, too. Like, we're not saying, like, oh, like, there's romance. I mean, there probably will be. But it's very obvious of the priorities that they go through.
Yeah. So, unfortunately for most of us, unless you're watching it in Japan, or you're going to be buying the Blu-ray at some point, we can't watch the uncensored version. We can only watch... There's 2 different versions. There is the ecchi version, and then there is the TV version, which is... The ecchi version is still censored, but certain words are not censored, whereas with the TV version, like, literally, like, 99% of the show was censored.
And I am not here to throw shade on people who like the H stuff, okay? Nothing wrong with that. But this show is so lazy in terms of the thing that they're trying to do. It is essentially World's End Harem 2.0. I've said that to many people, including Will, and I think Will agrees, right? The censoring is even worse in this case because it's literally like exclamation, like triangle sign everywhere. And it's just like, well, okay, you bleep out certain words, but we don't even know what those words are technically. So it's just like...
I mean, you put it in like a very succinct way in that this is basically Shield Hero, but the tits are bigger.
Oh, yeah, that's very true. Because there's a lot of violence and gore to the point where I don't think it's necessary other than for shock value.
I think that's what it is, really. It literally is just shock value.
But one thing I do appreciate, though, a very small glimmer of hope, is the monologue that the main character goes through. I think like he's very cognizant and aware of not only his surroundings, the situation he's in, but what people are like, oh, what is this person trying to say really between the lines? I was like, oh, okay, clearly he's talking about let's buy some stuff.
Yeah. So last night when I saw the score, it was a 7.02. As of this morning, it is a 7.06, which I can understand why it went up, because titty drop. That's literally it.
So titty drop, scores go up, or something else goes up.
Whatever the rhyme may be, Dr. Seuss.
So... On to the next show, which is the winner for the weirdest title translation from Japanese to English, we have Buchigire with an exclamation mark, but the English, I mean,
Shine on, Bakumatsu Bad Boys. Why?
It is an anime original produced by Geno Studio.
And Geno, I think they did something else that was. I mean, they did Golden Kamuy. They did Golden Kamuy.
Oh wait, they did.
You did, yeah.
Like all of them?
All 3 seasons.
What about season 4?
I think it's still them.
Oh, okay, cool.
I think it's still them.
So it's not like they don't know cultured stuff. Because have you seen their bears? Have you seen their bears?
But at the same time, it's like you're just working with what you have. And if it's an anime original, then if it's written well, great. If it's not written well, then you get Buchigire.
As a raw score of 6.45, I think Will told me like this one quote that he thought up that I think is the best succinct like thought of this. Will.
Yeah, you put every shonen, action adventure, anime, and manga there is into an AI, and you get them to reproduce a script based on everything it's watched. And you also throw in some Seven Samurai. You throw in some Reservoir Dogs.
You throw in some Soul Eater.
And then you get Buchigire.
It is about a group of criminals who are about to be executed, but then were not executed and in exchange for their lives.
They pledge allegiance to a samurai society, essentially.
And they have to basically pretend to be these people who have died, and they have to take revenge for the original wielder's death, except, hey, why does my katana glow a certain color? How come every single character has a certain color attributed to them?
Why it embodies the soul of the previous wielder, aka they're holding lightsabers.
Why is the twins from Samurai Champloo, they're not twins, showing up here, but they're knockoff
the Champloo boys,
but they're knockoff brands. Like
they're basically got like the thing they're known for from like Jin and Mugen, but that's it. Like they don't have any other personality otherwise. Like one is just cold and distant, the other one is just stupid and aloof.
Even down to their backstory is identical.
It's the same. It's that's why it is just regurgitated AI shit. And then all the other characters don't really have any personality. Animation quality is actually okay.
It is. Okay. It looks okay. I think the trailer when we first saw it, we were very like, "What the fuck is this?" And then it turns out that they have that kind of pastel, like like old parchment when they have fibers interlaced.
Yeah.
It has just that kind of look. So it was a misjudgment, but the rest of it was not a misjudgment.
It's very subpar to shit at some points, to the point where you add everything together. It's just a terrible waste of time. I don't think anybody will get a lot out of watching it.
I think Will said that it's not a bad show. I don't think it's a bad show, but it is a bad use of your time.
Very much so. Now we're going to go into, I think this is the last of the dumpster fires.
No. The second last, but I think we will spend a lot of time on this.
We'll try to, be... I don't want to go hard onto this, but we have to. Unfortunately, we're talking about Yurei Disco. So Yurei Disco is an anime original. Yurei Deco, Deco. Yurei Deco, anime original produced by my beloved Science Saru. Unfortunately, not doing very, very hot. And there's a very specific reason as to why. So it's a story about a futuristic society where people have different sort of like avatars, and there's a lot of hacking and a lot of digital transactions, and it's a lot of like, self-discovery and journey. But like in the end, I sat back and I tried to take everything in, and in my mind, I still have no fucking clue what the story is about.
What are the character names?
Oh yeah, Hack, Barry, and Finn. And then of course is like
wait, what is that? Why do those names, when you put it together, sound so familiar?
There's another character named Tom Sawyer.
Oh, like just straight up?
Yeah.
Fucking goddamn it.
So it's my problem with the show is, whilst it's very beautifully animated, I will not, deny that.
I do like the OP.
It's only okay for me. Overall, this is, I think when we were talking about it, you mentioned, like, even without watching it, when I was like, just through osmosis, when I talk about Denocoil, you're like, this feels like what, if they learn from Denocoil, it should be good, right? And I think what the problem is when you brought that up was, actually, this is a show with a children's aesthetic, trying to be smarter than it really is. But unfortunately, it falls flat to the point where if you showed this to a kid, they would be bored as shit. And you showed this to an adult, they would have no idea what the point of the show is.
So there is a Black Mirror episode, like a live action series that's very well known, where they talk about like social scores and likes and dislikes and loves and all that as a currency, like gamifying your life. And this is basically that. I think if you were to show this show 15 years ago around Dental Coil, this show would probably have been better received. But I think that if you were to show it in summer of 2022, all of these themes, all of these kind of philosophies are just a dime a dozen now.
It's essentially a recreation of our lives right now. And it's not like, oh, this is super meta. It's a commentary on our lives. No, it's like we know that people use Twitter. We know people use social digital currencies. We know that like a lot of the themes that they try to perpetuate within Yurei Deco is our real lives. But it doesn't necessarily give us an alternate perspective on it. Rather, it just shows this is how you live your life. It's like, okay, this is how I live my life. And it's like it's trying to be smart, but it's not at the same time.
And I think the animation is akin to another Science Saru piece of work, which is Kaiba.
I fucking love Kaiba.
And I think Kaiba is really good. But the difference with Kaiba and Yurei Deco is in Kaiba, the mood, the atmosphere, they really go all in on terms of how grim, dark, pessimistic, cynical, and messed up everything is.
A lot more philosophical, for sure.
For sure. And here, with Yurei Deco, it's just, I'm trying to do the same thing, but I'm not doing it that well.
Yeah, rather than it being a commentary, it's a reflection of what they think society is now. And look, like, I like Science Saru as a studio.
Me too.
I think that they do some really wacky, quirky, fresh approaches to anime adaptation. And, you know, there's really some stuff that I really, really like. There's also some stuff I really don't like Japan Sings 2020. This doesn't fall in the same category as to why I didn't like Japan Sings, but I still can't give this a recommend. Not even a maybe. It's sad to hear. It's not like I think that they're just constantly looking for avant-garde, weird shit to produce. I think that is kind of their shtick, but it didn't work for me. So I can't recommend this one to anybody.
Would you watch it, though? Like, you personally will?
I'm dropping after episode 3.
Oh, okay, really?
I actually don't think I will continue watching it. If I have time, I mean, it's the same way where I was like, Hakemonogatari is great, but I haven't finished watching it either.
Yeah,
there's just certain things. It's like it tries to delve deep into the obscure and the left field that it feels a bit too try hard. And I don't want to say that about Science Saru because I appreciate people who want to sort of like push the boundaries and be a little bit more creative and risky with the work they do. It's just sometimes the risk doesn't pay off.
I don't think there is any risk taken.
Do you really think so? I think it's just basically because well, it's an anime original.
At least from the story perspective, I don't think they're doing anything that's out there nowadays. I think the art style, yeah, because typical art style doesn't look like that. But then I would say, well, Kaiba is also very good too, and I would say that their art styles is more similar. I just think that this is just an unfortunate circumstance of it would have been a cool thing, but it ended up being just an okay thing.
Yeah, I think it's just India. We've seen too much of it already,
and I think a lot of Science Saru fanatics felt like conflicted and also feel kind of like it's not bad, but it's like
that's how I feel.
Yeah, exactly right. So,
anyways, moving on to I think this is the last one.
This is the last one,
right? So we have a plethora of isekais that have aired this season.
Wait, what?
A lot of isekais.
What?
Yeah, no doubt that people still really, really give a fuck about isekais. None more so than this season because we have like 5 isekais and 2 reverse isekais. One of which we're going to talk about right now, Black Summoner.
It is based on the light novel of the same name. Okay, you ready? By Mayoi Dofu, who did the story, and Kurojin, who did the art. The English light novel and manga series is published in English by J Novel Club, and it has a light novel source score of 7.22.
It's pretty much the same across the board for the manga, for the anime.
Who has a 7.18 right now?
It is probably like as much as it is like possible that it could go into our maybes. I mean, the score is tell by like watching it. It is the most mid show there is. It's essentially a kid wakes up and discovers he's in a new world. Isekai, wonderful.
Yeah, and this voice that is kind of talking to him is actually the goddess of reincarnation. But the reason why they're talking is because his wish was that he wanted to get a bunch of overpowered skills into his next life, but he also gave up his memory of his past life, but apparently not enough for them to know that he's in an isekai and everything looks like a video game. But he also was like, yo, you know what? I'm going to do the Konosuba thing, and I'm just going to take you, the goddess, as like my companion. And she's like, I got nothing to do. Yeah, sure, why not? And there you go.
He gets reincarnated, and lo and behold, he's super overpowered. In fact, he is an S-class in his summoner rank, but he can't go around saying he's an S-class summoner because people bring a lot of attention. There's not that many summoners in this world.
Because in this world, if you are already declared as a summoner, you are so powerful that people will fawn over you and fight over you and want to cause a bunch of attention.
And because his base stats are already at S tier, it just means that when he keeps leveling up, it goes beyond S tier to the point where he's already super powerful. He's just going to continue to get even more and more and more powerful.
But because he's multi-class, he is an F rank or D rank for a green mage. So he's like, you know what? That's going to be my cover. All right, cool.
And he ends up just basically wrecking shit. He's super powerful, yada, yada, yada. I think it's just basically, like, I'm going to say something really, really offensive.
Here we go. But let's hear it.
It's so mid that they named the character Kelvin.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to all the Kelvins out there, but, like, this is a fantasy show. It's an isekai.
Look, Mr. Penkin.
His name is Kevin, not
exactly.
Kelvin.
So I'm just telling Mr. Penkin, like, we are not trying to say Kevin is a bad name for an isekai hero. We're saying Kelvin is a bad name for an isekai hero, okay?
It's just, I mean, like, when you have people named, like, Yuri or Lixteria or Ainz or whatever, like, you want to go deeper into the fantasy tropes, and then it's kind of like me going into an isekai or making a character in an MMORPG and calling it William.
So I think that just because your premise is, very typical and samey does not mean that the execution or the overall production or the writing is bad. It's just that, as Will said, it's just super mid. That's it.
It's a whole case of been there, done that.
Yeah. There's nothing here that you can sort of say is like a hook that can get people to even pay attention. So
the score itself is not bad. It's like a 7.18, 19.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's plenty for people to enjoy about it, but it's like you gotta be really, really into isekais to enjoy it. And then therein lies the problem. If you're really, really into isekais, this is not that different from anything else you've watched. So you might want to just like collect and watch them all. This doesn't feel like if you had that on your shelf, if you have this in your collection, you can brag about it. I'm not saying you have to brag about it, but you want to recommend a show that you really enjoyed, and this is not one of them. This is a show that like you watch and then you kind of forget about it.
How about this? First of all, yes, that's correct, Will. But if I were to see someone being like, "Oh yeah, I finished Black Summoner," my thought is not, "Wow, this guy has poor taste." No, actually not. I'll be like, "Wow, you just have a lot of time on your hands," because it's not a bad show. It's just whatever.
No offense whatsoever. If you do watch it, in the end, it's just. There is other stuff to watch, which we'll go over later on.
It's extremely competent, and I guess the dialogue and banter between the goddess and Kelvin is pretty funny, cute, nice, but that's it, really. They go to dungeons, they do shit, they wreck shit, they,
There's plenty of other isekais you should be watching this season instead. Like, it's not the lowest ranked one, but
it doesn't deserve a 7.18 in my opinion. That's really where it stands, especially when we go into other shows.
I wouldn't drop it so low as to being a 6, but at the same time, like if it was, I wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. All right, so that is literally our summer seasonal portion of not only our dumpster fires, but the sequels that we covered. And we'll take a break. Will and I is going to chill for a bit. Then we'll get into the good shit, or the maybe good shit, and then the good shit,
and then the better shit,
and then the
and then when you're done, take a shit and then go watch some good shit,
or watch it while you take a shit.
Actually, no. If you're taking a shit, you should read Chainsaw Man chapters 98 and 99,
and then you just might shit yourself in how awesome it is.
Yeah. So go take a shit. We'll catch you later.
Peace.
Welcome back to the second half of today's episode of the Good Anime Palette Podcast. If you're done taking a shit, I hope you wiped your ass nice and clean, because we're going to be going into some real dirty shit, some clean shit, some fun shit, some obscure shit. Just lots of shit everywhere.
Why are we like leaning into this poop joke thing?
Poop jokes are fun. Yeah, I'm old as fuck. I still enjoy poop jokes.
I mean, I'm older than you, so.
And do you like poop jokes?
They're
mid, right?
Oh, Jesus. Okay. So now that we have gone over our dumpster fires, we are now progressing into the good stuff. But here is the maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. It's more of like...
Definitely has an asterisk at the end of them. Yeah.
It definitely are shows that we feel have merit. Or, for example, if you're into that kind of niche, this is not a bad choice to consume as part of your seasonal lineup. So, Will, I'm going to talk about this plot line, okay? There's this guy, and he is a tamer, a monster tamer. He is also been transported to a world, and he's super overpowered. And
we already covered Black Summoner.
No, this is another anime, Will. This is My Isekai Life.
This is where we start going into that territory of, like, what the hell's going on in the isekai world now. But, I mean, it's here, so we might as well talk about it.
But My Isekai Life is not just called My Isekai Life. The full title is My Isekai Life, I gained a second character class and became the strongest sage in the world, ! It is based on the light novel of the same name by someone that I forgot to put into the docket. Sorry about that. There is no official light novel adaptation
in English,
but there is a manga adaptation published by Square Enix Manga, and it is produced by Studio Reveroot.
So the light novel is very obscure, to the point where there's actually no stats on my anime list. The manga adaptation does have a score. Unfortunately, it's not great. 6.82. The MAL score for the anime as of now is, at least as of recording, is a 6.54. Now, you're probably wondering...
Oh, snap. 6.53 now.
So you're probably wondering, why the hell are we suggesting an anime that is so mid that it's not even a 7? It is literally in territory of being just okay, but we're pushing it as a maybe.
Okay, so just to give credit where credit is due, Shoto Shinko does the story, and Huka Kazabana does the art. Okay,
So the plot that you mentioned just now is literally the same plot as Black Summoner, right? A kid gets reincarnated in a new world, a fantasy world, but he's also incredibly overpowered, learns to be able to utilize his skills to ascend the ranks and be acknowledged as a incredibly powerful adventurer, a multi-class adventurer, I have you that. And it's, how is this any different from any isekai, any fantasy that we've read or watched in the past?
The short answer is nothing. The longer answer is blobs. That's really what we're talking about, because this main character, how he ascended to overpoweredness, OPness, is because he tamed a slime. And then this slime was like, hey, you should technically tame the rest of my family. And here comes 20, 30 slimes. So he decides to tame all of them. And it just so happens that these slimes can do, their own thing and just absorb a bunch of knowledge. Like, he read like a library of books within like a minute, because each blob literally read a book, and then they start communicating and things like that.
So I'll be the first to admit that I wrote this off as soon as it released. I knew that it was going to be coming out. The first episode dropped, and as I was about to check it out, I saw literally, oh, there's like a bunch of slimes on here. This is slime isekai, right? But not as good. because the scores didn't reflect very well, and we already had slime isekai. There's a bunch of slimes in the poster. What difference is this anyway?
And right? I'll be the second person to say that when I saw that score, I was also like, this is a non-issue. But I then decided, like, kind of like on impulse, like,
why the hell not?
Why the hell not? Because it sounds exactly like Black Summoner, but the scores are so different, I'm going to be ready to shit on my Isekai Life.
I mean, like, basically, I watched Black Summoner, and Jason watched Isekai Life, and then he told me the plot to Isekai Life, and I was like, so here's the plot for Black Summoner. I was like, wait, really? It's the same thing? It's the same thing.
I literally thought Will was joking, but turns out that he wasn't.
Black Summoner, it's a summoner that works within essentially works for the Black Knights, and then in my Isekai Life, it's a sage that works for a black company, as in they do underground shit. And so, what's the difference? Well, one is actually kind of decent, and the other one is so blasé that you can read it off and forget about it. So my Isekai Life, for a studio that I don't really know much about, the animation quality is actually pretty good. It's quite fun. The music is incredibly generic, but that's also not a bad thing either. The opening sequence though is like super generic. So it's like main characters turning towards the screen. There's the old man who kind of ruffles his beard, and then afterwards the chorus starts beginning, and then like the action sequence kicks in, and then afterwards then it's just the OP the MC looking out to the beyond, and then end credits the credits, and then begin the episode. It's so generic.
So Studio RWBY did another isekai anime that premiered in spring 2021, also has slime in its name, Slime 300.
Oh, that was it.
So basically, the slimes that were killed in Slime 300 were the slimes into my isekai life. Sure, that's the through line.
So the story is generic as heck. The music is generic as heck. The characters are generic as heck.
They even have a wolf from basically Slime Isekai. Yeah.
So why are we recommending this? It's because of one thing and one thing only: the slimes.
So each of these slimes, and there are at least 5 or 6 of them that are credited as voice roles, each have their own personality or look, and they're just cute.
Their names are funny as fuck too. There's like the happy slime, the beard slime, the mustache slime. Literally, their name is like whatever characteristic slime. That's their name. It could not be more basic and generic, but it kind of just works. Sometimes whenever you add stuff together, some of its parts actually comes out to be pretty decent. And so therefore, when we're talking about the score, right, we've had a long debate over this as well, as to why Black Summoner is a 7.19 and why Isekai Life is a 6.53. When it really, it's not to say that it should be the inverse, but like it should be a little bit more equivalent, because you could find enjoyment out of Black Summer. You could also find enjoyment out of Isekai Life. I wouldn't say that one is better than the other because of the fact that they all run through the same formula. But in terms of entertainment, I did find myself having more fun watching Isekai Life.
There's also hacking scenes in my Isekai Life. They're not hacking actually, but it just looks...
They're spell shifting.
They're spell shifting, spell transferring, and I just thought that kind of thing is just more innovative, or literally, and we're going to spoil this, at one point they need to find camp with the party and the main character. The main character was like, all right, cool. I'm just going to grab a slime, propel it into the air, so then it can find a good campsite.
And then it'll spit out a tent.
Yeah.
And like a campfire and all that.
And I just like that kind of playfulness. And this also mixes well with the main character who basically got overworked and worked for a black company, and then gets like betrayed by his coworkers,
overused and all that,
and people dump shit onto him
probably die from overwork,
things like that. And then he sort of has this sort of mentality, and not only is he able to sometimes be surprised that there's actually decent people in this isekai world, but he also can anticipate certain shitty behaviors that a friendly person might appear to be. The Proud Wolf guy, which is literally he's called Proud Wolf, is kind of like a comic relief character. It's pretty standard.
It's so like, okay, again, the naming conventions are so basic. The fact that it's like, it literally is describer, noun, That's it. It's adjective noun. That's it.
There is a tree folk.
There's a dryad named Dryad.
There you go. So, and because they kind of are so in your face with the naming conventions, I know Kelvin is a very typical name with Black Summoner, but I also just kind of admire the sheer kind of shamelessness of, yo, our wolf is called Proud Wolf. Our slimes are literally something eye patch slime, like scar slime. You know, like it's just like, okay.
Yeah, we're not trying to play favorites here. I mean, for a while, I was like kind of digging Black Summoner, but after a while, it started being a little bit more sort of like a bit too generic. And I think it's the same thing with Isekai Life. It is also generic trash too, but you could still find a glimmer of enjoyment out of it, as opposed to where I think like the pacing for Black Summoner is a bit slower, so it does take time to build up. That's where the difference is, where it's very balls to the wall for the first couple episodes of My Isekai Life.
I like the first episode is basically one elaborate battle sequence, and I just like that kind of containedness of it, and it's just really okay.
Yeah. Before we even got into doing this recording, I was pretty much on the fence between Isekai Life and Black Summoner. Both of them were either maybes or drops, and it just came down to the fact that there were more episodes of My Isekai Life, and there was a lot more fast-paced.
I push for My Isekai Life over Black Summoner.
Yeah, because Jason's biased as fuck, so... I have my own biases too, but when it came to these two, it was just really hard to separate the two. But if I had to really, really like choose one or the other, I think it would be easier to recommend My Isekai Life, only because of the fact that there are more episodes out.
Now on to our next maybe show. It is basically When Will Ayumu Make His Move, which is based on the manga of the same name by Shoichiro Yamamoto,
the same mangaka who did Teasing Master Takagi-san and Tsubaki.
So I'll just condense it real quick. If you are very familiar with Teasing Master Takagi-san, imagine the main duo, but they're in high school and their roles are reversed. And instead of teasing, the main theme here is shogi, because they both belong in the shogi club.
Well, no, the main theme is war when the other person's going to make their move.
Right, because Ayumu,
which is funny because you make moves in shogi as well. So
right, so Ayumu decides to quit the kendo club that he's very talented in and decides to join not really a club, but this one other girl who is the president of the shogi club, and they play shogi after school all the time. And the issue is he is super into her, but he will not confess his love until he beats her, which is way easier said than done.
But he's also incredibly not just stoic but honest too.
And that deadpan,
he has no problem in showing that he has feelings for her, as in like literally saying, I like you a lot. But Ayumu is also very sort of like dedicated to his words, where he says, like, if he's gonna say like, I'm not admitting my love until I beat you in a game of shogi, he's not gonna do that. So
he's like, oh, yo, look, you're cute. And then the senpai is like, yo, what the fuck, man? Like, you clearly are into me. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's just play shogi.
So the question here then is, right, it's done by the same author as Teasing Takagi-san. And you've read and also watched Takagi-san. You like it a lot too, right? So as someone who has already consumed Takagi-san, if the formula is the same, what is there to offer in Ayumu? Because I haven't read or watched Teasing Takagi-san, and this is just like a fresh like approach for me in terms of reading and watching any of this sort of shit. So yeah, like what is there beyond Teasing Takagi-san that like you should absolutely check out Ayumu? Or is it because of the fact that there isn't all that much different? In fact, it's kind of just the same thing, that's why it's in the maybes?
Yeah, you just answered your own question. I don't think Ayumu is a bad show. I just think that it does the same thing in terms of the teasing part, or kind of like, well, they clearly are into each other. If there was a finale or a through line, they will get together. It's just a matter of when.
I preferred the romance storyline of the other couple, actually.
I like that too, because it's not just the titular couple. There are also at least one other couple that I just like a lot more, that they're in the library committee. And
It's also just because she's a kudere. Dandere, kudere.
Look, I'm a simple man.
It works. It just works. All right. That was a quick one because, yeah, it's the same as Takagi-san. If you like Takagi-san, you'll probably will find enjoyment out of Ayumu.
I will say,
just don't expect anything groundbreaking.
TZ Master Takagi-san, their like shot compositions and their kind of ambiance is done way better. Here, it looks more typical, like, high school type setting, whereas in TZ Master Takagi-san, it is middle school, so, okay, fine. Middle school and high school is not really that different in terms of a setting. But because they're in a rural place, they kind of show you, like, the boondocks. And that actually factors in quite a bit into the romance between the two Takagi-san couple. So, still good. Ayumu's still good, but watch Takagi-san first.
Right. Now, going into a show that I have absolutely no idea about, even though I know of the show for the longest time, because it didn't exist as an anime before. It existed as a web series done by Rooster Teeth. We're talking about RWBY, spelled RWBY.
Do you actually know why it's spelled?
Why would I know? I don't know anything about RWBY.
Okay. Well, RWBY stands for red, white, black, and yellow. And RWBY: Ice Queendom is the name of this anime, based on the web series of the same name by Monty who passed away, rest in peace, from Rooster Teeth. And it's produced by none other than Studio Shaft.
Is it any good, Jason?
So I watched RWBY previously, not this iteration of it. And it was very 3D, kind of, if you like Red versus Blue, which Rooster Teeth is known for, it is akin to, I guess, machinima, I think, is that kind of...
Yeah.
But
that genre.
So the look with Studio Shaft, it is very clean, and the action is very good. And one of the things that I like a lot is the choreography, because the team battles, they actually do team battle combination type stuff, where it's not just I shoot, you follow. It's like, I do this move, you do that move, we execute these abilities, and that's always the highlight of the old RWBY. Besides that, and if you're interested in RWBY, this would be a very good iteration. That's it.
Yeah, so I made the mistake originally in thinking that this adaptation was actually a sequel of the web series, but it's not. It's actually more of like a remake of the original series.
Yes.
So it's like, for someone who might have, I mean, there always has been a debate before where, like, is original RWBY an anime, or is it Western animation only and can't be considered an anime? Well, now it is an anime. So if you had previously consumed original RWBY, what is there more to add with this adaptation of RWBY?
I think they clean a lot of the look. It looks more pristine, smooth, and the same things that you would like, which is the choreography, the characters, the team building, is very much present in this iteration of RWBY. And if you have always heard of RWBY but don't know much about it, this is not a bad place, or I would say even a very good place to get into it, because it's extremely presentable, because you can really write off the machinima style. And I won't fault anybody for that, but I think this would be like, well then, this is not machinima, this is Studio Shaft, so give it a shot. That's really what I would say. RWBY is a good iteration of it.
Okay. On to the next series within the Maybe section, a series that both Jason and I have watched. This is The Yakuza's Guide to Babysitting. It's based on the same manga, the same name. Art and story, both done by Sukiya. It is published in English by Kaiten Books as of February 12, 2021, and it's now in print, as of, for almost a year now. So there is two studios that are producing this. Studio Feel, period, and Studio Gaina.
Forgot to add the period in the docket.
Do not forget the period, man. That is a blasphemy. So the mouse score for the manga source is pretty okay. It's 7.55, but the mouse score at the moment is pretty strong, 7.85.
And usually for sources, the source usually has a higher score than the manga, than the anime adaptation. That's just a typical thing. So to see the inverse of that usually would raise a few eyebrows. So the story is exactly what the title suggests, which is the main character is part of a Yakuza, and the head of the Yakuza, his daughter, needs to be taken care of because he needs to do Yakuza type shit. So then
the mom is sick.
In a coma, basically.
Yeah. So if you've ever watched, okay, like this is really showing my age here, but if you've ever watched Kindergarten Cop or Big Daddy, like
wait, what's the one with Adam Sandler?
That's Big Daddy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's that basically.
It's basically that, but with a Yakuza dude.
And this is probably the highlight of the show. A very adorable daughter.
This is probably the fluffiest show this season.
I think that is the saving grace for this show, in the fact that it would have been a drop for me had it not been for a good characterization of the Yakuza member's daughter. Like, she's adorable, fluffy, and also like has those kind of like real like heart-hitting moments that, hey, life is not all that rosy. There's going to be some real hard shit, and like, yes, you're a kid, you don't need to know all this stuff, but you are also part of a world where the Yakuza are intermingled with a lot of shit beyond your understanding, and therefore you're going to have to grow up real quick. And she has a hard time trying to process all that because she's like, what, like she's like 3-4 years old. She's a literal kid.
Yeah,
not even going to school yet.
No, he does. She does.
Oh yeah, she does. She's in elementary school. Yeah,
right. One thing I also really like about the characterization are the Yakuzas, because they are just your average kind of dude. Some are more rough around the edges than others, but you even see like ex-Yakuza members that have their own life outside, but also is still ingrained. Like, there's all these, like, it's not black and white. And one thing I like is the main character, so the father figure, not the actual father, really just talks it out with the girl and being like, why do you feel this way? You shouldn't. And it's almost like not talking down to her, but almost at that level. Like, hey, listen, some people are just busy, or doesn't mean that they don't love you, or your mom isn't visiting you because she's currently going through some things, stuff like that, or, don't feel that guilty. Like, it is a very mature way of handling some questions that a toddler or a child might have that are sometimes really hard to answer.
Yeah. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty standard show, but with some good characters, which is why it's in the maybe.
And it looks clean.
I mean, it's kind of hard to not look clean now. I think like it's got the standard look, I would say. It's a very, very generally like okay show, but it does have some pretty like A tier, S tier characters, which definitely helps. And so therefore I think it would be a decent recommend. It might not be your cup of tea, but it's at least worth checking out a couple episodes.
I would say if you want to have a fluffy show, there is no question that this is the fluffy show. I wouldn't even say like Ayumu. I would say watch Yakuza's Babysitter on top of over Ayumu, because it's just nice.
Yeah, it's definitely not the fluffiest though in terms of like what's been coming out in the previous seasons. It'll do the trick if you need more fluff, I suppose. It's again, I think for me it's just okay.
It's not spring 2022 fluffiness, but is fluffiness nonetheless.
Yeah. So if it's fluffy you're seeking for this season, that's probably your go-to. That's the best we can offer, I think.
Now comes probably, Vermeil in Gold.
Yeah.
Is a very okay show.
It's in the same way where it's a very standard formula, but it's got certain things, in particular certain assets that propel the popularity of the show.
So Vermeil in Gold, a desperate magician barges into the magical world alongside the strongest calamity, which is based off of the manga of the same name.
Go ahead, Jason.
By Yoko
say the Japanese
Umezu, who did the art, and Kota Amana.
Say the Japanese name, Jason. Go ahead.
Okay, hold on. I need to brace myself. Okay, ready? I'm really sorry for the listeners here.
All of
Kinso
Japan.
no Vermeil, Gakepuchi Majushi wa Saikyo no Yakusai to Maho Sekai wo Tsukisumu. God damn it.
Yeah, you don't need to drag it out unless it's a double vowel.
The best part was Maho Sekai is really easy because it's magical world. So I was just like, oh, really struggling. Maho Sekai. And then, yeah.
Yeah. So the Mal score is...
Wait, hold on. What is my pronunciation score out of 10? Like a 6?
Probably the same as the Mal score.
Okay, which is
the 6.96. The manga is okay in terms of its score, and also like it's okay popular. Again, it's hard to gauge with manga on my anime list. On the anime, however, the score right now is a 7.23, and the members for it are over 100,000 people. I wonder why.
This show is a simple, I guess, fetish. Do you like Shota and MILF/Oni-san, One-san fetish? That's essentially it, right? If we're really...
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's just a whole Shota angle.
No,
I think it's just big tits, really.
Yeah, there's more to that, but yes, there's a lot more to that.
I mean, if you boil it down to just being a Shota anime,
that's not fair to it.
Exactly, right?
But,
like it's definitely a point within the anime, but like we're going into that whole like Shota lolly kind of really, really gray area.
So the main character is a student at this magical academy. He is a genius or works very hard in all aspects of his magical academy life, except he can't summon anything for shit. And at the very beginning of episode 1, he's like, well, if you can't summon a familiar by tomorrow, we're going to fail you and you're going to have to repeat a year. Well, guess what? He manages somehow to summon something, and it turns out to basically be this very voluptuous
succubus
who apparently is extremely powerful. And she's like, yeah, cool, sure. Let's hang out. Let me be your familiar and you be my master.
Yep. The titular character, Vermeil. All of her voluptuous succubus body is on display because, for the most part, I think she's naked half the time in the show.
Yes.
There's also a quote-unquote love rival, the childhood friend of Alto, Lilia. She herself is, it's
well endowed.
It's weird to say this because in the end, it's still like a high school show. But how is that any different from any anime we've seen, right? There's definitely that kind of angle in which you are less on the magical side and more on the edgy side. I can see like very clearly why people like watching the show. The premise, again, it's not that like crazy. It's very much like you would see from like a magical show, but when you add in big titty succubus, then it gets a little bit different. I guess that's the fresh approach that this series gets.
I think the show's okay.
It's not bad.
It's
not bad. There's definitely good comedic moments. The action scenes are actually pretty decent as well.
Yeah,
as you will see when you finish episode 3.
And there is crepes that
kind of weirded me out, actually.
A little bit,
because it's like I know it's supposed to be like modern day, but it's like it's still like a magic fantasy setting, and all of a sudden you see people using their smartphones.
Yeah, I'm just gonna drink like Starbucks coffee in front of you.
It was just like this was just so weird. It wasn't like it broke me. It's more just, dude, you're supposed to be like eating gruel and drinking like weird potions and like not even using electricity.
Well, they do drink potions in episode 2.
Yeah, but you're also not supposed to be drinking frappuccinos from Starbucks, right? Like that was like kind of weird thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's just weird. That's it.
So that rounds out all of our maybe shows, but let's get into our actually recommended shows.
We're finally getting into an isekai that we can actually wholeheartedly recommend. We're talking about Parallel World Pharmacy. It's based on a light novel of the same name by Liz Takayama, who does the story, and Keep Out, who does the art. Studio Deomedia.
Hey.
A good old classic right there. So it actually already had a pretty good start in terms of its manga. Not insanely popular. I mean, only 1,800 people, but it's a pretty hardcore fandom. Oh, yeah, the light novel. 7.41. It's a pretty good score, right? Then you go into the anime. Before we even go into the score itself, there is a very good reason as to why we put this in for a recommend as opposed to a maybe or a drop, and it's one of the least generic ones there. In the fact that it's still an isekai, there's still a kid who has like superpowers and all that. But
yeah, he used to be a chemist or a researcher, but then he somehow died
from overwork. Oh, very generic and
typical. Then gets not reincarnated, but like.
Basically, his soul then gets like transported into this this kid who lives in this world where rather than there being pharmaceutical research, it's all based on magic.
Or pseudoscience as well. And also, he got struck by lightning and he has a scar, which could be more than just a scar.
Ooh, spoiler alert.
One thing I like about Parallel World Pharmacy.
Parallel World. It's a fucking tongue twister.
Pharmacy Isekai. I'll just say Pharmacy Isekai. That's the short form. Is how realistic it is in terms of the medical jargon and chemical compounds. Like, this guy goes hardcore into like, paracetamol is this, and then I have to decant it.
I wasn't even expecting that, because in the first episode, it's very much just like the magic angle. Right, him discovering his powers, him being able to cast spells, and then people
he's
realize
super powerful now.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, like, you go into the second episode, and he's actually like developing like medicine, and then going through the chemical compounds of everything he's putting into this potion, and then making ointments to be able to treat ailments of people and all that. Like you have a medical science background,
yes,
right? And you said to me as well, like,
hey, I got a job recently.
Hey, yeah, fucking awesome.
Yeah,
this kid also got a job too, except he had to die for his job.
Yeah, I mean,
you lucked out. You didn't have to die for yours.
I didn't have to die for my job.
But then when you saw all that, right? Like, and I think you told me as well. But like, how accurate were like the depictions of all that, the medical shit?
It's accurate in terms of the names and the scientific, like, cold hard facts. Like, okay, that is literally the compound that you are talking about. Good, and that is used to treat this. That's good. So I'm not that well versed in pharmaceutical sciences, but I know enough to vouch for its
authenticity.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, for at least currently. Maybe they go into some hardcore shit later on. And I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, I have to Google it, but it sounds okay to me. I just think it's a good show because they really lean into the things that make it unique in terms of why they call it pharmacy isekai.
It's informative compared to, Black Summoner and Isekai Life, which is just regurgitating the same shit that we've seen before. This one is no different in that, like, we have seen like pharmacy-esque kind of isekais in the past.
We have Slow Life in Another World.
Yeah, I mean, like, if we wanted to put that even more basic, I mean, like, there's a lot of fantasy shows like Healer Girl, where just basically people in like quote unquote pseudo medical science healing people. This is not that different from the formula, but this also goes a next step further and actually teaches people, actually shows, not really teach people how to make paracetamol. I'll say that for sure. This is a disclaimer. It's not going to teach you how to make medicine, but at least it doesn't just like say, oh, we're going to make Panadol, and then they just make Panadol. They actually go a little bit into like what goes into it, what chemical properties it has, and what it's supposed to do. Even when he has his superpowers, he tries to learn about ailments. He actually go deeper into like the medical conditions and the causes of certain diseases.
I find it offensive that you kind of low-key dissed Healer Girl.
What do you mean? It is generic though.
Anyways,
what's wrong with it being generic? There's a lot of generic shows I still like.
Right. Okay. Right? No. Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
But
it was not a diss to Healer Girl. I'm saying that we've seen stuff like this before.
Okay.
So what is this how is this any different?
So in Pharmacy Isekai, one other thing is he notices certain things like, oh, this is, for example, this person has this ailment, so then this is what you should do. This is what they should be doing, but they're not. Oh, why are people don't have access to this, and that? It shouldn't be that way. It's kind of like if you are like this really idealistic person, but now you are in a position where you could do all these things, what would you do?
It's not just as simple as finding cures for ailments either. It's also the fact that like he's still in the world where medical research has not advanced to the point where he was at in his previous life.
Or blasphemous even.
So exactly. He would be essentially condemned as a witch. Right, he would just be like seen as some crazy demon spawn, and it's just like, why are you casting this black magic on us? So he has to be very careful with how he introduces these medications, these ointments to people.
And that actually happens where he thought with a certain interaction with a certain person, it backfires pretty badly, and it gets resolved. But it is like, oh wow, you're not just like an OP person and there are no consequences, you're just going to win all the way to the bank. No, like, it's not that simple. So that's why I think Pharmacy Isekai is probably the Isekai of the season to watch for sure.
Specifically, isekai. There is something else coming in later, but we will explain once we get to that specific series. So we now go into, at least for this episode, and not a sequel, the first 8.00 plus show that we have on our list. We are talking about Call of the Night. It's based on a manga that is in the same name by Kotoyama. Done the story, done the art. Very, very hardworking person. Lyden Films is the studio that produced it. And from initial inspection, I already knew it was Lyden Films. Like, if you didn't tell me it was, I could tell you straight away, yeah, this is a Lyden Films thing. Because them character designs were weird as shit. They pretty much, like, it was the same way when I looked at Tokyo Revengers, and it was the same thing. I just felt that they were drawn very, very weird. But character design-wise, on the outside, it's a fun anime. I was pleasantly surprised by it. So the manga score is very high, 7.94, but the
7.99 now.
Okay, then the anime score is a little bit higher, reaching into the 8s. Is it higher now than the 8.04 you posted this morning?
No,
same thing. Okay.
Same thing.
So this is a very, very interesting take on the sort of supernatural romance genre, in that it follows a middle school student named Yamori, who is pretty good at studies, but slowly but surely kind of gets a little bit jaded and feels that, like, you know what, like, I'm gonna just stop pretending. I don't like school. I never liked school. I'm tired of pretending to be smart. So you know what, I'm just gonna quit and do my own thing. But as a result of that, he starts doing a lot of late night shit to the point where he just can't sleep anymore. He actually develops insomnia. One day on a short walk, he then meets this really weird looking girl, but she's kind of just standing on her own. Her name is Nazna, who essentially can just tell, hey, look, I know you haven't been able to sleep. I can tell by looking at you. I'm going to help you sleep. Brings her back to her apartment. They sleep in the same futon. No questions asked whatsoever. And then next thing you know, as he's slowly pretending to fall asleep, she then goes in, not for a kiss, but a straight bite of the neck. She's a fucking vampire. And thus begins the story of the Monogatari series.
So I read Call of the Night, which is published in English by Viz Media. So I read it a long time ago, even before that they announced an anime adaptation. I was pretty optimistic about its performance. And I think when I went to listen to my manga review, I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird, but it also highlights the theme of freedom and exploration at night, because the whole anime takes place at night. Oh, do you like the color purple? I do, because there's purple everywhere. Will doesn't like the OP and ED that much, but I quite like it. I thought it was pretty fun. Will is like rolling his eyes.
I don't think it's good at all, to be fair.
All right, but one thing I also like about Call of the Night is that it's not only your atypical romance, but the dialogue is pretty snappy, pretty funny, and racy. Like there's literally like a good dialogue that spans like 5 minutes where they use the word slut at least more than 8 times. Right? Kinda?
You actually counted 8 times?
No. I did.
It was a lot more, I think.
It was a lot more, probably, yeah. So hey, the premise of this random woman telling me to sleep in her bed so that I can cure my insomnia, that's hella sketchy. And the guy even like goes through all this stuff. Like,
it's essentially just like two people from two worlds, where one doesn't necessarily understand social romantic cues in the human world, and the other one doesn't understand what it means to be a vampire, even though this kid's like, you know what, like, I'm gonna quit my life and I want to be with you. And she's just like, you have no fucking clue what it takes to be with me and all that. And so it's that kind of like, come get me, but stay the fuck away from me kind of anime. Interesting characters start showing up, and I think, yeah, the dialogue is fun. It's definitely well written. Character designs, again, it's really weird. I don't think you're a big fan of it either, but you take that aside, and overall, it's a very well-presented anime. Definitely a good recommend for this season.
Because the original mangaka, she also, I think it's he or she, they did Dagashi Kashi, which has 2 seasons and that aired a while ago about like candy, confectionery in Japan. And I still think that the character designs look hella weird there. It looks hella weird here, but everything around it is really good in terms of Call of the Night.
We go into now, if there was an isekai to recommend, which was Parallel World Pharmacy, there is now the reverse isekai to recommend for this season. We are going to go into the Uncle from Another World, which started off as a manga of the same name. So if it's not known as Uncle from Another World, it's also known as Isekai Oji-san. Hotondo Shindeiru was the person who did the story and the art for it. It's published in English by Yen Press as of June 8th, 2021. Now, the studio in question is Atelier Pondark. No other credits as far as I could find.
Like major credits. Yeah, maybe
they might have done some support work in the background.
Yeah,
but
or in between stuff.
They're not like the first name you see on the credits of an ED or an OP or whatever it may be. So a first major work. I remember when I was talking to Jason about it too. He was very cautious about it. He read the manga, not that far into the manga, but definitely when he saw there was an adaptation, he's just like, this could go really, really bad. And you were not sure if it would do well this season.
I really like the manga. I would not stop talking about how funny the manga is. But when I saw some of the art for the anime, I started to panic a bit because it looks exactly the same as the manga. And the manga looks... How do I say this? It
looks sketchy?
Literally, yes. It looks sketchy.
And so then they transitioned it into the anime adaptation with a similar art style. One thing that is like very, very apparent is that the lines that are drawn are extremely thick. Like it's not like very thin character outlines. No, it is like you can tell that this is where the jaw ends and the chin begins and all that.
And the uncle also has certain like faces that he makes that are very exaggerated and very anime-esque. You can watch this show worldwide on Netflix.
It is a good show. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's a travesty that it's still only a 7.97, but with only a couple episodes out, it's only going to get higher. I think the score has slowly but surely increased to the point where I think within 2 episodes it will probably be an 8.00. It's a 7.9.
It's the 3rd episode came out. Yeah, so episode 5 or 6, halfway mark, it'll probably break it for sure.
7.97 right now. It's like it's teetering. It is literally like at its door right now.
The storyline is a reverse isekai where the uncle was in a coma for 17 years, and then the nephew shows up when he wakes up, and turns out
for the 17 years he was actually in a different world. So he wakes up just murmuring a bunch of mumbo jumbo, a lot of gibberish.
And he's like, what? No. And then when he can finally realize that he's in Japan, the first thing he asks is not, where's my family? What happened? What year is it? The first question he asks the nephew is, what happened to Sega?
And he has to break the news to him that the console war for Sega didn't end well.
And this starts the hilarious journey of the uncle reciting what has happened in his other world, his life in his other world, and literally projecting, and sort of the nephew and I guess other people, just the shenanigans that he went through.
Now, aside from that, initially I just thought that, well, this uncle has been in a coma for 17 years, and yes, he was in a different life like during that time, but surely that's it, right? He's just going to be like that crazy uncle that talks about all the shenanigans he did in this magical world. No, he actually then carries over the spells and the trials and the abilities that he accrued during his comatose and brings him into modern-day Japan, specifically 2018 in the anime.
Yeah, and to make matters even more, I guess, out of place, 17 years have passed and he doesn't understand certain things like, why is the internet like this filthy, degenerate place?
He doesn't know what tsunderes are.
He doesn't even want to have essentially...
He doesn't have a smartphone.
He doesn't have a smartphone.
He wants to use a flip phone, and like, it takes the nephew like a long time to explain to him like what you were using back then. Those cell towers don't exist anymore. In fact, like everything, like Japan still uses flip phones, but the specific flip phone that he was using runs on 2G, and that shit died 10 years ago. Now, even though it's a trope that in any Japanese series, even like in some like IRL series, that people still use flip phones, and it's pretty much true. There's still people who use flip phones in Japan, but those flip phones also have smartphone capabilities as well,
or technology integrated with apps and stuff. So yeah, it's just really funny to see the disparity of what he thinks the world is like before he was in the coma and what the world is like now that he is out of the coma.
I will say, in terms of opening sequences, it's my favorite this season.
Yeah, it's rock solid. I don't think the theme is that solid, but the title sequence.
I love the theme. It's just so fun. I would go on to say that it's probably my favorite of the season. But music aside, though, it was just very refreshing to see something nostalgic.
Yeah, so I'm very pleasantly surprised by this show, and I really think you're doing yourself a disservice to not watch this show.
If you grew up in an era when, like, the Segas, the Super Nintendos, like, that era of gaming, and you played those consoles, this could be something that is, like, really your shtick. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I grew up in that era, too.
When we say shenanigans ensue, we literally mean stupid shenanigans, and it is just hilarity nonstop.
Every episode in itself is self-contained, in that there is a story. It ends at the end of each specific episode. Like, there's very little to carry over other than like the character interactions and developments. You could very much watch each isolated episode and be able to enjoy it as is.
And they subvert a lot of the tropes of isekai, where like, oh, hey, look, I don't think this happens, but like, oh, you have to kill like the mighty dragon, and he just destroys the dragon in like 2 seconds. Like, what's next? And they're like, it's like that kind of hilarity.
It's like, oh, you've saved the princess. What do you do now? I'll move to the next town. You're not. Wait.
You're not going to marry the princess? I mean, you defeated the Demon King.
That's what they want me to do, but I walk this path alone. And everyone's just like, what the fuck are you doing?
And then you get the nephew like in present day being like, the fuck is this uncle thinking? God damn it! You could have dated this hot chick. But
it's just like, no. They only want what's in my pockets. They only care for my money, whereas only I care for my pride and my heart. It's like, you're upstanding as shit, but this is a game, dude. Like, don't take everything so seriously. But then it realizes that because he had lived that life for 17 years, he's going to take that shit seriously. So it's a very, very hard recommend. I would definitely say, like, of all the series,
hard as in not difficult.
Hardcore recommend.
Yeah, like we definitely think you should watch this show.
Definitely.
Now, the last two shows that we're going to talk about are kind of, even though they are two separate works, and it seems to be apparent that one is considered more favorably than the other, they're both anime originals, and they're both done by A1 Pictures. And if we have to say OLM was last season's MVP, and the one before that would be MAPPA, and then the one before that would be like Cloverworks or something.
I think Cloverworks was before because they had that.
Oh, Horimiya, that's right. And Wonder Egg and Tokyo 24th War. Okay, anyways, Engage Kiss and Lycoris Recoil are the two shows that we're going to end.
How the hell do you pronounce it? Lycoris?
Lycoris?
I need to see on the wiki because they might actually have it written phonetically.
So let's start with Engage Kiss, which has a 7.26 on my anime list. They obviously have no source because it's an anime original. The story is actually quite typical because it takes place on this fictitious city that has this resource that can produce a massive amount of energy that is relatively clean. So no like waste or byproducts. And it talks about like this city has these demons that are basically terrorizing the city, but they cover it up. And they have like these companies whose job is to get rid of these demons. And our main character works for one of these companies, then decides to branch off and be independent, and is teaming up with this demon girl who basically is Yandere Light. Would you say so, Will?
I don't even think it's Yandere Light. I think she is just a straight up Yandere, but she has some sense to her.
Ayano? Ayano is the ex-girlfriend who used to be... No, not used to be. Still is, like, the head of the company. Wait, no, the mom is the head of the company. She is, like, I guess, like...
She's a colleague that works within the company.
Right, so then they used to be... The main character and him, which his name is Shu, used to be ex-colleagues, and used to date and now they don't.
Long story short, it's basically a love triangle. People who have supernatural powers, some of them who are just super powerful, and then a Dence as MC who also has his moments to shine, working together in a syndicate that's able to take on paranormal activity. And shenanigans ensues. Why are we recommending it? It's fucking beautiful. It's really, really fun. The first episode itself, watching it
was super good.
You don't even go in like needing to know what it's all about. Just watch it, completely clean slate, and you kind of get lost as to like what the hell's going on, because the first couple of minutes I was watching is like, okay, so this thing is happening, and then there's like money being transferred, but like what does this mean? Oh, there's a girl in this apartment. Okay, cool. She's making food, but all of a sudden now she just warps into like another world, and then she's doing her own crazy shit. What is this about? And then as I started to collect my thoughts, it then dropped that 5-minute sequence of one of the craziest fight animation sequences of this season.
All the while having an argument and a lover spat.
It was very beautifully choreographed.
Definitely.
I would think that like if there is anything to take away from this series, the animation quality, as expected from A1 Pictures, top notch. Very, very, very good.
Now, I think episode 2 dips a little bit in terms of just like the amount of sheer eye candy, but then then episode 3 kind of puts it back up.
It gets a little bit more existential in episode 3.
Yeah.
So I think like the reason why like it has its current like score is I think it's still trying to find its footing, but at least like as you're trying to like see what the show's about, I'm enjoying what I'm watching.
I'm definitely enjoying what I'm watching. I would suspect the main reason why a lot of people rate this less than the anime that we're going to end on is because people were expecting an action anime and with comedic and romantic elements, whereas this show really, in my opinion, is a romance comedy with action elements. And if you go in with that expectation, I think regardless you'll have a good time. But you really need to not consider an action series and more of like it's a love triangle. That's really it, with crazy sci-fi battles and stuff.
But it's not to demean it in any way. No, it's like as a comedy, it's actually solid.
It is solid for sure. And if there ever was a yandere that I would think I could interact with and be amicable, it would be.
I can see how hard it is for you to say that with a straight face, because you know you want to stay the fuck away from yanderes, but they somehow managed to make this one work. Very, very cute, very loving relationship, but at the same time you know like there's something up here, and when like things go like really foobar, like you do not want to be around this girl.
Foobar. Wow, I did not expect that.
Yeah, throwing it back.
No, like it's accurate. Okay. I would say this is the MVP of this season if you consider everything included and the surprise of how good this show is. Will, would you say so, roughly?
I had that thought up until Uncle Isekai came along, and I would, if it was up to me, I would probably vouch for Uncle Isekai, but if it was more sort of like trying to be objective and trying to see what would be more enjoyable as a whole across like whatever genres people appreciate, whatever character types people like, I would say that Lycoris Recoil is probably the one to go.
Is it Lycoris? Did you double check on that?
It's actually Lycoris.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, phonetically it says Lycoris.
Well, Lycoris Recoil is an anime original produced by A1 Pictures.
English is hard. It's not even an English word. It's borrowed from Latin, by the way.
Yeah. The raw score is an 8.09, which is quite surprising. We didn't expect that, but with anime originals, you don't know how good or how bad it is. Do you like cute girls doing things, Will?
Just say it, dude. Cute girls doing cute things.
No, because in this case,
it's still cute as shit when they do it. In this case, though, it is assassin things.
Cute girls doing assassin things. So essentially, in this fictitious,
just say it. Do you like cute girls? Yeah, I like cute girls.
Yeah, cute girls. Yeah, okay, yeah. They actually don't belong to any high school, right? They just dress up as high school girls to kind of blend in as like
it's a cover,
urban camo. But in this world, there's no police force, no nothing.
It's all like pay for hire, like security groups, essentially.
And these security
or pay for hire hitmen.
These security groups are basically like teenage Black Widows, essentially, is what it is, in high school girl outfits.
Yep.
the action and the look of this show is phenomenal. It is just a very generic storyline, and I'm assuming that there'll be like conspiracies and who backstab who and all that. But the main character, Chisato. My God, I keep fucking shit up. Chisato is voiced by Chika Anzai, who did Reina from Sound Euphonium. So if you know who she is, she's the kudere in Sound Euphonium. But here she plays like basically a Genki, energetic ADHD girl and plays it extremely well. Also, she's a badass. Then you get your actual kudere, who is kind of got discharged, disavowed, and she's trying to find her way back not only into the organization that fired her, but sort of her way in life. And it's just about these two girls doing all these assassination missions or protection missions, essentially for the good of the city.
So what's good about the show then? Why is it like already like the highest recommended we have? Other than the fact that it is an 8.09, they've got some really good voice actors and some really good animation quality, and it's also A1 Pictures. But this is also like a series that came out at the same time as Engage Kiss, and animation quality wise, both of them look very similar in that they're both very, very high quality. But why are we pushing for one over the other?
Well, for me personally, it is the action beats themselves are very well choreographed, very high octane, and it's just a really fun series. I think Engage Kiss is still fun, but it kind of gets more like, it tries to be also a romantic comedy, whereas Lycoris Recoil is basically straight up action.
One thing I would say though that it kind of gives a point to Engage Kiss is it's definitely the riskier one of the two series. I think that it's kind of standard to have like a all assassination group doing escort missions and building a squad.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Whereas like the other one is just like you have a weird kind of like little supernatural love triangle with a not very conventional yandere, a not very conventional ex-girlfriend, but a very dense and conventional MC. So like that's the thing where like Engage Kiss, like where you and I both agree, if there was one to go off the rails, it would be Engage Kiss. Because it could easily kind of lose momentum, get lost in its story, and just try and find ways to scrap things together. In the same way where it's like Wonder Egg was a very, very out there premise, and it did really, really well up until the end, and then it dropped. It could totally happen with Engage Kiss.
I just think that Lycoris Recoil is the quality, at least I feel, is extremely consistent. The premise, as Will, you said, it is very generic, really. But I think everything else around it, the production value, the voice performances, even the music, everything is just done very, very well. It's such a crowd-pleasing show, and it doesn't disappoint. Now, Engage Kiss, I also agree that it can crash and burn, but there is a chance that by the end of this season, you and me will cannot stop singing praise about Engage Kiss. And we'll say, Lycoris Recoil is still good and still very, very good, but Engage Kiss is where you need to have your attention on.
Like from far away, you could see that Lycoris Recoil is going to be good, especially with the way they set the tone for the first episode. Actually, if you were to look at both side by side, they both are A1 Pictures. Lycoris Recoil actually aired one day before Engage Kiss.
Right.
So it had that one day advantage, and that may have played a role in it having a higher score. I don't know.
They're both anime originals, so everyone didn't know what to expect.
They both have exactly 100,000 members on MAL. Well, I think Engage Kiss has a little bit more.
No, but you're right. Like it's literally the same almost.
Yeah. But what we're trying to say here is that they're both really fucking good shows. In fact, you should probably watch both of them, along with Uncle Isekai. If you're only going to watch 3 seasonals for summer, Uncle Isekai, Engage Kiss, and like Lycoris Recoil.
Yeah, and if you want like a left field choice, Call of the Night I think is a very like unorthodox show, and Pharmacy Isekai is essentially a good version of what an isekai is, this time with pharmaceutical sciences.
Yeah. But what we wanted to do here is that we're really pushing for Lycoris Recoil because it's it's the most perfectly executed show. The music is done well. The voice acting cast is picked perfectly. The action sequences, top notch. Like there were some really crazy scenes in Engage Kiss, but if you were to expect good levels of consistency, of good quality, you can't look further than Lycoris Recoil.
Yeah, I think that is really it, right? Like, I think Lycoris Recoil won't change in terms of its impression on people, and Engage Kiss will be divisive. Whether that divisiveness is good or bad has yet to be seen. But I think Lycoris Recoil won't change in terms of its quality unless if it really shit hits the fan.
I think like because of the fact that these are anime originals and we're only 3 episodes in for both of them, if we were to go by the end of the season, I could say, this is just me again. I don't know about you, but you might be in agreement with me. I could safely say that Lycoris Recoil will be able to consistently hit the right notes and even stick a good landing at the end, whereas Lycoris Recoil probably will have a good ending, but it'll be a rockier journey towards there. And it really does have to do a little bit more to maybe convince people that this is like the anime of the season.
Like, if I had Engage Kiss and Lycoris Recoil as like my 2 kids, I would pay less attention to Lycoris Recoil because I know it does okay. It's good. Like, it will sort itself out.
You are a shit dad. God damn.
Yeah, I know. But Engage Kiss, like, that needs more attention.
But the thing is that's essentially the myth that actually is true. There is always a favorite child. There is always a one that you want to take care of the most.
Why do I not have kids right now is because what I just said.
Yeah, well, it's also because there's too much anime to watch, and therefore, who has time to make kids? Or you rather watch, anime of people who are trying to figure out if they should have kids.
Hey, who knows? Maybe when I marry someone there, and then the stepmom, becomes the ex and domestic girlfriend, and
I'm not bringing my I'm not bringing my kids around.
Vermeil in gold, whatever, blah 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 blah. And that is the end of episode 39 for the Good Anime Palette podcast. You can always reach us through our email gapalette@gmail.com. That is GAPALETTE@gmail.com. All lowercase, all one word. You can also contact us on Twitter using the handle @PaletteGood. That's capital P and capital G, all one word. I just realized that I used the wrong housekeeping script. Will, can you cover me for like 30 seconds?
Yeah, sure. So just to sort of give like a little bit of a teaser into the upcoming episodes, for episode 40, the big 40, we'll be going over our new iteration of the anime closet cleanup. So if you remember a while back, we did a little bit of a hat pick where we just picked stuff out of a hat and said that we're going to be consuming and reviewing specific series that we have had on our plan to watch lists for the longest time. Before we go into that, because of the fact that there's going to be stuff like Futopia and the Maid anime that will be airing the weeks after this episode releases, we'll probably be going over into as well. So if you are fans of those series and you're upset that we're not covering them, don't worry. We will talk about them at some point.
As they release.
But if you're thinking we're going to be talking about Made in Abyss and Danmachi, I'm super sorry, guys.
Or Rent a Girlfriend season 2.
We're not watching those.
You can send us your hate mail if you want, and I'm just going to repeat everything again. You can reach us through our email, gapalette@gmail.com, GAPALETTE@gmail.com, on Twitter using the handle @PaletteGood, that's capital P and capital G, or through our Discord server. So if you want to just talk to us and just tell us how wrong we are, the invite link is in the show description. We have a website. We encourage you to check it out, www.goodanimepalette.com, all lowercase, all one word. Music credits for this episode. Our intro music is Ninth Power by Henyo. Our break music is Salamanca by Sarah the Instrumentalist. I got it right this time. And our outro music is Golden Rules by Luwak. You can support the music artists we feature by listening to them on Spotify, Apple Music, or other various music listening platforms. And our royalty-free music was provided by Epidemic Sound. And if you're interested, you can sign up using our referral link in the show description to get 10% on your first 12 months and the first 30 days of subscription for free. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm still reeling from the fact that I had to put a drop on Yurei Deco. Like, as much as I love Eun Choi, as much as I love Masaki Yuasa and Sain Saru, it's look. I know that Masaki probably didn't have much to do, or if anything to do, with Yurei Deco. But
All right, so
it's hard to fanboy about something, but then also be hit with the reality that something that's come out just really isn't good. I might be wrong. We might be completely wrong about Yurei and like the next couple episodes.
I think as it currently stands, though, you're not wrong, in my opinion.
It's so hard to do. It's so hard to do it to Sario.
So, Will, now that we have gone over all our seasonal lineup, what is your personal watch list that you're going to watch until the end, likely?
Probably all of them. I would say, at least all of the stuff that's in the maybes and the recommends.
Wait, you'll watch Ayumu as well?
Why not? I mean, I haven't watched Takagi, so why not watch it as well? If I end up, I mean, like, I have a lot of free time, Jason. I have a lot of time on my hands to be able to watch stuff because I've been watching a lot of anime to catch up for the fact that I may or may not be in the recording studio come October and November.
Oh, speaking of that,
more on that later, actually.
Yeah, but not just that, but I'll just mention right now, Will and I will be changing recording venues possibly after today, and we'll report on that.
Yeah, very, very likely that we'll have a new studio. So if there are any differences to the sound, if there's any, sort of things that you notice are not the same as usual,
blame Will, don't blame me.
Yeah, we're basically moving into into my office, basically my actual office, and not the office that I currently work in. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Hopefully the move goes well. I'm really looking forward to having everything set up in the next 2 weeks and get everything ready for episode 40.
I mean, we won't say where we're located, but we will live.
Don't dox us.
But we're now living very close to each other. I'll say that.
Gross.
It is gross.
Going to be able to hear all your anime that you're playing or not playing because you'll be reading manga instead.
Hey, I like reading manga, man. You should get on that train too.
Nah. Because then, otherwise, I'm always caught up on all the stuff we need to talk about for the Anime Palette podcast.
Is our food coming yet?
It's on the way.
All right, cool. So
I'm hungry as shit. So
I don't know if they could pick up my stomach growling over the mics.
The microphones are they're condenser mics. They're not going to be able to pick up. If they were dynamic mics, then maybe, yeah.
All right. Well, that is the end of episode number 39. We will get back to you with another episode probably next week or the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff that's already pre-recorded, so we'll go into those when those specific episodes release. But if you're looking for a major, like regular episode release, stay tuned in 2 weeks when we go over our anime closet cleanup.
It's going to be great.
All right, we'll catch you guys soon.
Peace.